Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Batter Round. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He's my co-host and producer, Zachary Allen Goodman. Today is Saturday, October 28th, 2023, a beautiful fall day. It doesn't even feel like fall. It looks like fall. It doesn't feel like fall out there. It is gorgeous. I want to remind you that the Batter Round is brought to you by the Toyota Tacoma, which comes in a range of models and trim lines, and you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Lots to do on today's show. Stan the Fan Charles coming up for his weekly segment. Ryan Ripken will be joining the show at 11 o'clock. But first and foremost, before we get into any of that, we have an announcement regarding the future of the Batter Round. And for me, I don't know how much for Zach, but for me, it is heartbreaking to say that the Batter Round has an expiration date, and it is coming quickly. November 11th will be the last broadcast of the Batter Round, and Zach and I came to a mutual agreement for this. We spoke with Glenn and John over here at Press Box, and Zach is in graduate school, and he's got a really incredible internship with the U.S. Senate. And being a grad student, having that kind of an internship, there's just he's got too much going on to be able to dedicate the time it takes to produce this show and be here for 2 to 2.5 hours every Saturday. I knew that was coming with regards to Zach. Now, I knew it was coming sooner rather than later. Wasn't quite sure when, but I knew it was on the horizon. I did reach out to Ryan Blake to see if he'd like to continue in Zach's role, knowing full well that Ryan would say no. We hit kind of a perfect storm having Zach be able to do this show, because you're not going to find many people that are willing to give up every Saturday morning throughout the course of the entire year to spend 2.5 hours doing a show, and then also, frankly, your Friday nights to do the show. This is something that people right out of college, like Zach was, are willing to do because it helps get your foot in the door. But it's one of those things where I don't know that I'm going to be able to find somebody that I'd have the same rapport with that I have with Zach. And Ryan was probably that only other guy. And when he said that he couldn't do it, and I knew that pretty much. Plus, after talking with my wife, with the baby coming, with my new career, it just seems like now is a good time to stop. For me, it's heartbreaking because I love doing this. This has been my passion for as long as I can remember. The Orioles, baseball as a whole, has been my first love. And, excuse me, I've always wanted to work in sports. And even though I made a decision about 2 years ago to no longer pursue a full-time career in sports, this kind of always kept my foot in the door and never really let that candle completely burn out. And I'm not saying that the candle's completely burned out at this point, but it kind of feels like a final blow to my potential career in sports. And again, it was a choice. It wasn't something that I was forced to do. This was a choice once I got married and started looking at big picture for my life, my family, and our future. And so at this point, it just seems like a good time to stop, take a step back from doing this show, and try to provide the best life for my family and myself. That doesn't mean I'm going to be going away completely. I'm still going to try to do something throughout the year. I love baseball too much to not talk about it, not give you all my opinion whether you want it or not. Love it way too much.
Payoff pitch around the league, making a return. Triumphant.
Yeah, right. I love this way too much to fully give it up, but the 2.5 hour commitment every Saturday and the time it takes to do the show on a Friday night, it's just not in the cards anymore with what both Zach and I have coming up in our lives. So once again, if you're just tuning in, the Batter Round's final show will be 2 weeks from today, November 11th. I don't know that I want to get a guest for that show. I don't know what the point would be with the season being over.
We can just let it run. Yeah,
maybe just do a best of, or I have no idea. We'll be on the show live, but do some kind of memory show or whatever it will be. I haven't fully decided yet. But Zach, what's your anything you want to say about this?
Well, we can definitely come up with something good to do there. That would be a lot of fun to kind of have a really good recap show on the 11th, especially since the season will be over. And that's kind of one of the reasons that we decided that would be a good day, because the season would be over and it's the first week into the offseason. It's been a really good 3.5 years now we've been doing this together, which is hard to believe. I looked back on it. I was on my LinkedIn the other day and I saw really about 3.5 years. I've been a producer now for almost 3 years, and then I came on about, I think, like 6 months before that, maybe not even 6 months, 5 months, just doing the show as your co-host. So it's been a really interesting 3 years. We've talked to a lot of very cool people on the show. That's something that I will absolutely miss, the opportunity to talk to people like Ken Singleton and Gunnar Henderson and all the amazing people that we had on the show. Today, Ryan Ripken's really cool to talk to. So I'll certainly miss that. I'll certainly miss the rapport with you back and forth. We've built up one over the years and had a lot of fun talking baseball. So there is certainly a lot I will miss from the show. But unfortunately, grad school is unbelievable amount of work, where I just feel like I need to be on top of things as much as possible. So, unfortunately, you've got to make some hard decisions like that. But I will absolutely miss many, many, many parts of the show. And it was a lot of fun for 3.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, really, I started on this show in December of 2019, before the pandemic even hit, as Stan the Fan Charles' producer. And then we got about 3 months, and then the pandemic hit. And when the season was announced, it was going to be a 60-game season starting on July 24th. I asked Stan if I could do my own show after his show on Saturdays, and he said he didn't really foresee himself wanting to continue as the host of the Batter Round, and asked if I would like to be the host of the show to move forward, which was just an incredible honor and something I could not imagine being gifted 3 months into my career as a producer of the show. And having that got me a lot of opportunities at 105.7 on Glenn Clark Radio, opportunities that I'm going to be forever man, I'm getting choked up. Opportunities I'm going to be forever grateful for, and opportunities that kind of really helped me get into the sports world, helped me get paid for the first time working in sports. And got me. I have the numbers I have in my phone are just unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there are people who are world renowned who I have as a contact in my phone. That doesn't mean I can call them and they'd answer.
Oh no, they wouldn't answer me either.
But they're in there, and that's pretty cool. But it's, and then being able to do my first show. The day after the season started in 2020. And Zach didn't come on until probably a month into the season. Not even.
I think it was middle of the summer sometime, like July or August of 20.
Yeah, it was. I think it was late. Yeah. I think it was probably early August.
Something like that.
Because we had an original. I had an original co-host, and it just wasn't working out with him. It didn't seem like the show was as much of a priority to him, and so Zach came in, and Matt Pine was the one who recommended Zach to me, and it couldn't have been a better marriage for the last 3.5 to 4 for the last 4 seasons, doing the Batter Round, covering the Orioles from basically the worst team in baseball to the second best team in baseball record-wise. It's been an incredible run. I'm going to miss doing the show, but we still have a show to do. And so we are going to move forward today. Quite a World Series game one last night between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers. Nathan Eovaldi squaring off against Zach Gallen for the Diamondbacks. Eovaldi, 4 2/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. It was an up-and-down performance for Eovaldi last night. He started out really hot. That second inning in particular, when he struck out the side, he looked unhittable.
Yeah.
But Arizona is scrappy, man. They're that scrappy team. They don't go away, and they end up taking a 5-3 lead on the Rangers. Zach Gallen, 5 innings pitched, 4 earned runs. Gave up 2 earned runs in the first inning and only 1 run the rest of the way. 3 earned runs, 4 walks. 5 Ks. Not the greatest performances by either starting pitcher, but I'll tell you what. We were all kind of expecting, and you can tell by the players that we took for Take to Rake last week.
Yeah.
We were expecting Phillies Astros.
Yes.
In the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
And we got Rangers Diamondbacks. And I don't think anybody really outside of Arizona and Texas really wanted to see that.
Well,
But if every game is going to be like last night's game, it's going to be an epic World Series.
Oh, no doubt. Someone said on Twitter that I saw, they said, well, this is one of the best game ones we've ever seen. And I don't know about that, but it was really good. You won't forget it. And let's see how the rest of the series goes. You might remember game one a lot more if the rest of the series is really boring. Like, if basically the Rangers just win the next 3 and that's it, then you'll probably remember game one a lot more because they came back. Adolis Garcia looks like Randy Arozarena from a few years ago, where he's just unstoppable. Home run in 5 straight games for Adolis Garcia. Like, this guy is doing things that I don't even. I'd have to compare the numbers between him and the guy Randy Arozarena, who I just mentioned. Really, really good postseason, like exceptionally good postseason, where he's getting the hits at the right time. And I went into the season saying that the Orioles needed more guys that, like the Rangers had, the super high, superstar, high-paid guys. Adolis Garcia actually isn't even one of them. You're looking at Marcus Semien, who really hasn't had a very good postseason so far. Like, he's hit 180, I believe, 200, somewhere around there. Corey Seager's been pretty good. But Adolis Garcia is just a homegrown talent that they've made into a really, really good baseball player. And he's going to be super valuable the next few years. I think you're seeing him come into his own. He's not a bad defender either.
Wasn't he a Rule 5 pick?
He might have been a Rule 5 pick. I don't believe so, but I can check on it.
I know that he was like...
And then not only Adolis Garcia, but you see what Evan Carter's doing right now. And Evan Carter, his slash line, if you look at it from the minor leagues, he had well over a 400 on-base percentage. He was very, very good. And this is a guy who's been a top prospect for a while in the organization, but Evan Carter has come up and been absolutely unbelievable throughout the playoffs, batting 308 in the playoffs so far. This kid is really far better than you ever could expect it from a rookie who is just 23 years old. It's truly remarkable what Evan Carter and Adolis Garcia have done. And that's why they won, frankly.
And Adolis Garcia has been absolutely ridiculous in the postseason, but let's not gloss over what Corey Seager did last night. Bottom of the 9th, literally on cue. They say they said something about him. I can't remember the exact line, but Corey Seager one swing away from tying this ball game, and then on that pitch, he smokes a home run in the bottom of the 9th to tie the game. And Corey Seager, if Shohei Ohtani didn't exist, he'd be your AL MVP this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Corey Seager is that guy that we think Gunnar Henderson can be. So watching him do what he did, come into his own, and look, he has been a phenomenal player, a Rookie of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
I believe he was a World Series MVP. You look at what Corey Seager has done in his career, and this has been his best year. He has been everything and more that you wanted him to be, and to hit a home run in that situation, and then for Adolis Garcia to come up in the bottom of the 11th, after all the theatrics he's given us already throughout this postseason.
Right.
That walk-off home run that he hit last night gave him a Major League record 22 RBIs this postseason.
Yeah, it's unreal.
This Texas team, man, they might be a team of destiny. Yeah, I mean, when you spend $500 million on free agents over the last 2 years, you probably should be a World Series contender. Yeah. But make no mistake, they've earned it. They have been and it's crazy. Because they were that team. They had like 6 or 7 4-game losing streaks in the last 2 months of the season.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they kind of backed into the playoffs. They lost the division in the final weekend of the season because they lost 3 or 4 to the Mariners. Right.
And which is unreal to think back to.
It's crazy that happened, and now they've gone 10-3 in the postseason.
And the Mariners almost snuck in at the very end of that. Like, it would have had to be it was a tough road for them, but they really got close. You look at Corey Seager, and he signed through 2031, and it brings up the discussion we've had on this show probably 50 times. But look at the long-term contracts that teams are forced to sign guys into. This one is one that looks like it's going to pay dividends. He's not going to be this guy in 2030. I don't think anyone thinks that. When he's at the, last 4 years of his career, last 3 years of his career, more specifically that contract, he's not going to be the same guy. But what you're getting out of Corey Seager right now, and the fact that he's basically with Adolis Garcia and with Evan Carter doing everything for this team, it's worth it. Yeah. It's worth it. It starts to change my mind again. I flip-flop all the time on whether I think these contracts are worth it. But if a guy like Corey Seager can get you into the playoffs like this and just and tie the game last night like he did and do everything else he's done in these playoffs so far, then it's hard to overstate that worth.
Yeah. A lot of these long contracts, you're paying for the first half of that contract, and then whatever you get in the second half is a bonus. And
right.
And if you get a World Series or two out of the first half of that contract, it's well worth it.
You're happy,
yeah,
right?
You're absolutely happy, and that's kind of how they look at things. And getting back to Adolis Garcia, he was not a Rule 5 pick, but he was traded from the Cardinals to the Texas Rangers in December of 2019 for cash considerations. He got 6 whole at-bats in 2020 for the Rangers and went 0 for 6. He was designated for assignment on February 10th, 2021, after the Rangers signed Mike Foltynewicz. And then on February 12th, he was outrighted and invited to spring training as a non-roster invitee. He goes on to win, I believe he won Rookie of the Year in 2021, and he has been a force for them ever since. Defensively, he is a Gold Glove outfielder with a cannon for an arm, and offensively, I mean, we don't even need to say. It can't be overstated what he's done offensively for this team in the regular season. Now, really shining when the lights are the brightest in the postseason. This Texas Rangers team. Now, look, I cannot count out the Diamondbacks. Right, they went down 2-0 to the Phillies. They went down 3-2. They won that series to get into the World Series. They lost that game last night by a run to the two best players on the Texas Rangers, Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia. Corbin Carroll has been absolutely fantastic. And Ketel Marte has tied Derek Jeter for the longest hitting streak in postseason history, but it's the longest hitting streak to start a postseason career for any player. He's been fantastic. Zach Gallen's been up and down. He's not been very good his last 3 starts, but this team has talent. They've got a lot of young talent. They're only going to get better from here, and I can't count them out. It's one game. The Rangers look like a wagon. I mean, they took down the mighty Baltimore Orioles and the mighty Houston Astros, and you can't bet against them, but you can't bet against the Diamondbacks either.
Yeah, I mean, Zach,
just keep your money in your pocket and watch the games.
Yeah. Well, it's funny the Diamondbacks only had 84 wins this year because you look at Zach Gallen, and that's a guy who is a frontline, true ace starting pitcher. I think Zach Gallen is one of the best starting pitchers in the National League. I truly believe that. 17 wins this year, 3.50 ERA, 4.5 WAR. Like this is a very, very good pitcher. So to see him not be so good in these last few starts is puzzling, I guess, but it hasn't really hurt them. They're in the World Series, and they were an 84-win team. Nobody expected them to be here. But it's the guys that you don't expect maybe as much to contribute. Alec Thomas, another 2 hits last night. There's been just the lineup is not really a big-name lineup. There's not 3 or 4 guys in there that you look at like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. That it's not like that with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So you look at the lineup and it's a bunch of guys that you've maybe heard of, but if you're not in Arizona, maybe you haven't. So it's amazing to see them really stick in every game, and I think they're going to put up a fight here. I don't think Texas is just going to walk all over them, even though they are the hot team right now. But then again, the Diamondbacks are the hot team in the National League. So it goes both ways.
They're definitely not going to get walked all over. That's for sure. But the crazy thing about the Diamondbacks is I had given up on them completely this year because I'm trying to pull it up. I heard them say something on the broadcast last night, but I want to get it correct. I heard them say that over the last 3 months of the season that the Diamondbacks were 10 games under 500, and let's see, they were 8. Yeah, they were 10 games under 500 the last 3 months of the season. I remember looking at their record in August at a certain point. I think it was the middle of August. And they were 8 games under 500 for their record. Yeah. And I was like, wow, they fell off a cliff.
They did.
They fell off a cliff. And then towards the end of September, I'm watching a Cubs game on, just briefly turned it on. It was after one of our shows on a Saturday. Yeah. I turned the Cubs on Fox, and they were saying, the Cubs still managing to hold off the Diamondbacks in the NL wild card. I said, what? And I looked, and the Diamondbacks were like 2 games above 500. But
they got hot.
But they were right in the thick of the race. I mean, this team, at the end of June, what was their record at the end of June? You know what? I'll go look really, really quick here. At the end of June, this team was 49-34.
Yeah, pretty good.
And actually, after July 1st, they were 50-34. They were 16 games above 500. And then they only won 34 games the rest of the way. And over the course of 3 months. Like, that's absolutely incredible that they were that bad the second half of the season. 8 games under 500 at a point in August. And they managed to not only get into the playoffs, but then And I think they got swept in their final series. I'm pretty sure they got swept in their final series and still somehow managed to get into the playoffs. Yep, they lost their last 4 games of the season and still managed to squeak their way into the playoffs, and now they're in the World Series.
Yeah.
It's one of the most incredible and miraculous runs that you're ever going to see in the postseason.
So one of the really under-the-radar pickups was Gurriel. You look at Gurriel Jr. and what he did this year, 261, 24 home runs, 108 OPS plus. Those are good numbers, especially compared to the rest of the D-backs lineup. You have Ketel Marte, who's been an established guy. He's probably the most established star in that lineup. Ketel Marte is a good player.
Yeah.
And Christian Walker is going to be a good hitter, but that's, he hit 33 home runs. He's a first baseman, classic lefty power hitter. That's what Christian Walker does. Gabriel Moreno had a good year as a catcher. Geraldo Perdomo had a decent year at short. Like, these are guys that maybe you probably haven't heard of. I mean, Geraldo Perdomo, is not a big name in Major League Baseball.
We didn't even get the name right the first time.
Right.
Of course
Correct. Jake McCarthy played 99 games for this team and is listed as a starter here. Hit only 2 home runs, but on-base percentage of .318. That's almost what Austin Hayes put up this year. It's just these guys that you don't really know played a lot better than maybe you would have expected. But Gurriel, I really believe, was one of the key pieces that put them over the edge this year.
Oh, absolutely.
They got better.
There was a point a few years ago, and I think it was during the 2021 season, where I'm watching Lourdes Gurriel. May have been during the 2020 season. The season that he had in 2020, in 57 games, it was that season. I looked at him and I said, he's the best hitter on the Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. And then when he got traded to Arizona, I sat there and I thought to myself, they didn't get enough for him. I mean, I know that they got Dalton Varsho in that deal, but I feel like they gave up too much for Dalton Varsho. Like, Lourdes Gurriel is a really good hitter.
Yeah.
He's a really good hitter. And the Diamond, like you said, that was a key pickup for them. He was huge for them all season long. He set career highs in home runs, career high in doubles, second most RBIs of his career. The on-base percentage has dipped a little bit over the last couple of years, but he's still, like, he's
clutch, too.
He's a clutch player. He's just a good, solid baseball player that you need on a good winning team. This series is far from over.
Yeah.
They kind of put themselves in a little bit of a hole. You wonder how demoralizing a loss like that is when you're leading by 2 in the 9th inning.
Yeah, well, it has to be.
But you wonder how that affects them moving forward. But we've seen time and time again, this team, they don't quit, and they have that ability. Again, down 2-0 and 3-2 to the Phillies in the NLCS, and they're in the World Series. We expect them to bounce back. Before we get Stan on the line, a couple of Orioles notes that we want to talk about. The Orioles have received some sporting news accolades. These are awards voted on by their peers. Mike Elias, Executive of the Year. Brandon Hyde, Manager of the Year. Gunnar Henderson, Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
I wonder if these awards mean as much or more to the recipients because of the fact that they're voted on by their peers. They're not the official awards. They're not the Major League Baseball official awards, but they're still significant. Like when Ryan Mountcastle was the Sporting News Rookie of the Year in 2021 for hitting 33 home runs. But he wasn't the actual Rookie of the Year.
Right.
You wonder how much, I mean, I'm sure they still put them on their mantle. You wonder how much these awards mean to these players.
I would think a good amount. But when you get the national recognition of the actual award, I think it means a little more. Yeah. I think players, I'm not saying it's like the Inigo thing or anything, but it kind of is in a way. Like if you're recognized by the entire country as the Rookie of the Year rather than just by Sporting News.
Right.
I feel like you probably value that a little more.
Well, yeah. When people look at your career, they're gonna see if you've
baseball
won,
reference, you pull it up. That's what you're gonna see.
Baseball reference, your award is gonna go down in the annals of history. Sporting News awards, they don't do that, but I'm sure they still mean quite a bit because this is what the players and other coaches and executives voted on to help to get you to win. I'm sure it means something, maybe not as much because those aren't the ones who go down in the annals of history. Like Ryan Mountcastle can't call himself the official Rookie of the Year.
Exactly.
From 2021.
But how amazing is that to have the Executive of the Year and the Manager of the Year? That's pretty incredible. That's just top executives.
Takes you back to 2014 when Buck and Dan
Yeah, that's true.
Won the award at the same time because that team was
so many parallels. If you look back, I mean, 9 years apart, but so many parallels between those two teams.
Absolutely. Now, in the other Orioles news, lots of promotions, too many to get into, and we could sit here and talk about who got promoted to the director of scouting and this, that, and the other, but you guys don't care. Like it's a big deal inside the organization and as a whole, but the casual fans, okay, cool. Tell me about Chris Holt and Darren Holmes. Chris Holt has been the Orioles pitching coach and director of pitching for the entire organization since 2021. He is no longer the pitching coach. He is taken a step back from that role, and he will just be, primarily focus on, or solely focus on, being the director of pitching for the entire organization. It seems like a demotion because he already had that role and he was a pitching coach, but they really want him to be able to focus better on just the overall pitching of the entire organization.
Yeah.
Darren Holmes, you would think, would be the guy to replace him. Well, he's gone. He was the assistant pitching coach. He is no longer with the organization. He's moving on, probably trying to get his own pitching coach position with a different team. You wonder if maybe the Orioles told him, look, we just don't think that you're ready for that role yet, and so he decided to move on. It's interesting that he will not be the guy to fill the role, so the Orioles have to fill not only their pitching coach role, but also their assistant pitching coach role this off season. And we'll get into more of – oh, no, we won't. I was going to say we'll get into more of that as the offseason progresses. But
I have one comment on an executive promotion. They promoted Matt Blood out of the director of player development role. So that's not going to be his anymore. That's a really significant role. I think that's one the fans care about. He's been on our show before, Matt Blood. Yeah. They promoted Anthony Villa, I believe that's how you say it, Anthony Villa to director of player development. Anthony Villa is 29 years old. This guy's young. He just played in the minor leagues as recent as 2018. So it's pretty incredible that this guy has, I guess being a former player, he probably knows the ropes of player development, but that's pretty impressive. And this guy played third. It says he was a third baseman, first baseman, and left fielder in his career. So played around a lot, probably knows a lot about a lot.
Yeah,
is the best way to put it.
To get that position.
Yeah, but that's a young director of player development.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in all professional sports time and time again.
True.
Just how young head coaches are. Sean McVay was 30 when he got the head coach job for the Rams. So also of note, former Oriole Ryan Flaherty is a finalist to be the next San Diego Padres manager. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. While Zach gets Stan the Fan on the line, I want to remind you today's show is brought to you by the Baltimore County Police Department. They are hosting a hiring event right now. It is taking place at the Public Safety Building, that's 700 East Joppa Road in Towson. Applicants can complete multiple parts of the hiring process, including agility testing, written testing, and the ability to apply on the spot. Members of our specialized units will be in attendance to further discuss career opportunities with the police department. And starting this afternoon, there will also be a trunk or treat event that is open to the community, even if you're not interested in joining the BCPD. So join the Baltimore County Police Department today at the Public Safety Building in Towson at 700 East Joppa Road. Joining us now on the broadcast, he is Stan the Fan. Charles. Stan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How you guys doing?
We're doing well, Stan. How are you doing? Did you stay up to watch that entire World Series Game 1 last night?
Yes, I did.
I tried to. I got through the 10th inning, and I could not keep my eyes open anymore.
Really?
It comes from getting up at 5 o'clock every morning during the week. I could not do it. So I missed.
I didn't realize you got up so early.
Yeah, if I don't get to the gym before I go to work, Stan, I'm just not getting there, and then I'm gonna get fat. So,
Right.
But last night, neither starting pitcher really set the world on fire. Nathan Eovaldi, he looked good early. Gave up 5 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Did strike out 8, only walked 1, but he left a lot to be desired. Zach Gallen, third straight start where he was not as effective as we become accustomed to seeing. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, but 4 walks to go along with his 5 strikeouts. What did you think of the pitching performance last night? I know that Eovaldi did you dirty during the regular season, cost you a fantasy baseball championship. What did you think of the pitching last night?
Fair to middling. Evaldi just definitely wasn't on last night, and it'll be interesting. That's why you would tend to think now that the Rangers really have a big upper hand,
Mm-hmm.
is because you probably needed to win the game Evaldi pitched.
Mm-hmm.
To let that one get away is really, really going to be tough to make up for the Diamondbacks. I thought Gallen sort of grinded through five. He hasn't really been on the whole postseason. I thought he had some opening jitters last night, and when he got those behind him, I thought he acquainted himself fairly well.
Yeah, and it was a nice bounce back for him because he gave up 2 runs in the first inning, put his team in a little bit of a hole early. But then he really settled in, only gives up 1 run over the final 4 innings, only gave up 4 hits for his outing. It looked like the Diamondbacks had kind of taken control of that game, but there's no taking control when a lineup that you're facing has Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, and Adolis Garcia. Corey Seager, Stan, comes up in the bottom of the 9th and hits that game-tying 2-run homer on cue as they're talking about how they're a home run away from tying the game, and then that pitch he jacks out of the park. Then you go to the bottom of the 11th, and maybe one of the all-time postseason performances we have ever seen. Adolis Garcia continues his hot postseason. Homers for the 5th straight game. This one a walk-off home run. 22 RBIs for the postseason, a major league record. How clutch have Seager and Garcia been in this postseason, and how much trouble are they going to give the Diamondbacks the rest of the way?
Well, I mean, it probably will give them a lot of trouble. I had an interesting take on last night's game, and it really has to do with sequencing of your relievers. I thought if he had used Seawald in the 8th inning, I think he would have gotten through the 4, 5, 6 hitters. I think it might have been 3, 4, 5. But I might have been tempted to use Seawald there, and then Ginkel would have had the bottom of the lineup, and what that would have allowed you to do, possibly, you don't know how it would have worked out, would have been sort of to really have your closer come in at the more important moment, because Ginkel's inning, and I like Ginkel, don't get me wrong. Ginkel's inning, his lack of success last night, he was able to get through it, but he allowed the order to swing around again,
Mm-hmm.
where you had to face Seager again. You might have gotten a 1, 2, 3 inning out of Seawald in the 8th,
Mm-hmm.
and Ginkel might have been able to avoid pitching to Seager.
Now,
Just a thought.
It's an excellent point. If you have Seawald pitching against the bottom of the lineup, there's a good chance that he gets through that pretty decently, and then Ginkel has the opportunity to not have to pitch in that situation where he has that opportunity.
Well, Seawald would have been facing either 3, 4, 5 or 4, 5, 6. But if he's on at that point in the game, Ginkel might really be able to handle 7, 8, and 9. You might not get around to Semien.
Oh, I thought you were flipping it the other way. My apologies on that one. But that's a couple weeks in a row that you've had an issue with the way these bullpens have been handled. Stan, have you ever thought about getting into the pitching coach game? The Orioles have a hole on their team.
No, that's not for me. I'm a good first and second guesser. But
you and me both.
It wasn't as galling a mistake as I thought Thompson made last week in that game that I ranted about last week. But I did think there was a little room for second guess with the way Lavulo handled that. But look, they got around to that point in the order, and Corey Seager didn't miss that pitch that Seawald did miss.
Yeah.
Was not a good place for that pitch.
Stan, I think a lot of us were expecting it to be Astros-Phillies in the World Series, and when it ended up being, the Rangers are a good team. When the Diamondbacks, and we were just talking about the Diamondbacks, they were 10 games under 500 the last 3 months of the season. They were 8 games under 500 overall at a point in mid-August, and they lost the last 4 games of the season. to back into the playoffs the way they did and make it to the World Series, I don't think any of us thought that had any inclination that any game would be that entertaining, and yet last night was a game for the ages, and if this entire World Series is going to go that way, we're in for a treat here to end the baseball season, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the Diamondbacks have very good scouting and they have very good execution and strategy. They're going to try and run the Rangers silly. And that's. It dawned on me during last night's game that that's one of the areas the Orioles in 2023 fell backwards, and it was interesting why it fell backwards. Their dynamic offense in 22 was when Mateo and Mullins were stealing bases left and right, and they became a real thorn in the side of teams. That didn't exist from about mid-May on because Mateo got pretty much benched by about June 1st, and Mullins got hurt twice and didn't run. So that dynamic the Orioles had in 22 was lacking in 23. And watching what it does to teams, it can really fluster teams,
Well, and the way that the Orioles started out this year, they stole like 10 bases in that opening series against Boston.
Yeah, and they looked every bit like they were going to be exactly that, but then Mateo got hurt. I mean, Mateo proved not to be able to hold on to the job, and Mullins got hurt, so the club became pretty stationary, from June 1st on.
Yeah, and with guys who Mullins is going to be on the roster this year. We're likely going to see Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday. We know we're going to see Gunnar Henderson, but we're likely to see Jackson Holliday as well. And those guys can steal some bags on their own. Maybe they'll get back to running a little bit more than they did last year when they were kind of forced to stop because of the poor play from Mateo and the injuries to Mullins. We'll see how that shakes out. Now, what's shaking out for the Orioles right now is a lot of promotions, a lot of moving parts with their front office and their coaching staff, but none bigger than Chris Holt, who will no longer serve as the Orioles pitching coach. He will focus solely on his role as director of pitching for the entire organization. And you would think that Darren Holmes would be the guy that would replace him because he was the assistant pitching coach. Well, he's no longer with the organization, so the Orioles have two big holes to fill on their coaching staff. Your thoughts on Darren? How is this? It almost seems like a demotion, but it's not for Chris Holt. Your thoughts on these moving parts with the pitching coaches?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at Holmes. I thought he was a good fit here, and I thought that the club liked him, and he felt comfortable here. I'm not so sure why he was allowed to just, or wasn't returning. With Holt, I don't know, it might be family situation where he wants to be closer to home, but it does strike me as odd that 3 years ago they sort of let go of their pitching coach, and I forget his name. He'd come from the Texas Rangers at one time.
Zach, do you know?
Who is it?
Are you talking about the Orioles' former pitching coach?
Yeah.
Doug Brocail?
Doug Brocail. Yes, Doug Brocail.
Brocail. It was interesting that they let Brocail go because they were afraid of losing Holt to another organization. And now it's like 2 years later, and for some reason they just want him to focus on being the organizational pitching coach. Listen, they like Holt a lot, and that may be his greatest strength to the organization, is helping the development of younger pitchers to come along, because it doesn't seem like the Orioles are rapidly developing any of these pitchers.
Yeah.
I mean, Povich stands a chance to be part of the rotation next year, but maybe that's where the help is needed a little bit more.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see which direction they go, whether it's one of these real young guys that comes in from some training center, or whether it's a sort of a grizzled veteran, pitching coach. So we'll see.
Yeah, we certainly will. You have to imagine how this came about. I don't know if maybe Holt came to them or they came to Holt and said, we'll pay you the same, but we want you to focus on this more. I have no idea how this came to be, but I trust this Orioles front office. They've done a lot of great things over the last 4 or 5 years, and I trust that if Chris Holt is willing to do it, then it's what's best for the organization. Brandon Hyde, Mike Elias, and Gunnar Henderson, they all received top honors from Sporting News. Now, these are the awards as voted on by the other players, coaches, and executives. The Sporting News annual awards select Brandon Hyde as your Manager of the Year, Mike Elias as your Executive of the Year, and Gunnar Henderson as Rookie of the Year. Now, Stan, we know that when players and coaches and executives retire, these aren't the awards that go down in the annals of history, but how much do you think these awards mean to the recipients, given that they're voted on by their peers instead of the Players Association?
I think I think they're ecstatic that they receive these awards. And I think they're probably all 3 of them are well deserved. I have a little problem with Henderson being sort of this run. And look, I love Gunnar Henderson. I think he's going to get better and better.
Mm-hmm.
If Josh Young, wasn't he the Rookie of the Year when he got hurt? Wouldn't you have thought he was Rookie of the Year when he got hurt?
Yeah, and he ended up missing a month and a half to 2 months, and because of that, Gunnar kind of stepped in.
Right. I thought Young. I think Young is a tremendous player. Just like Gunnar. So it just wasn't as automatic to me. I'd have to look at. I never really looked at the numbers. Gunnar hit 27 home runs?
28.
Something like 28. And what did Young end up with?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it was probably in the low to mid 20s because he missed so much time.
Yeah. But anyway, all 3 deserving of those awards, and I'm sure they're pretty ecstatic to get them. And I hope it's the first of a group of awards for Brandon especially.
Yeah, and the we've seen it in the past. Ryan Mountcastle won the Sporting News Rookie of the Year in 2021, but did not win the official award. I believe Brandon Hyde won the Sporting News Manager of the Year last year, but did not win the official award. So these really don't necessarily correlate with them winning the actual awards, but it's still nice to see your team be represented with some hardware at the end of an exciting and successful season. That's for sure. Now, the Orioles, Stan, they've gone out and they've made a few minor moves here. One of them, though, was claiming left-handed pitcher Tucker Davidson off waivers from the Royals. Now, when you look at it on its surface, Stan, you see a 5.98 ERA in 55 games with 17 starts between the Braves, Angels, and Royals in his career. He did start Game 5 of the 2021 World Series as an injury replacement for Charlie Morton with the Braves.
Mm-hmm.
However, last season, towards the end of the year, he developed a sinker that got the 3rd most whiffs at 52.6% in baseball, behind Felix Bautista at 60.2% and Fernando Cruz at 56.7%. And that's amongst pitchers that threw 60 or more. I think it was 60 or more sinkers. He got the 3rd highest whiff rate in all of baseball. Do you think this is a low-key, under-the-radar move that could pay big dividends, given the Orioles' history and Mike Elias' history, as a matter of fact, for finding kind of diamonds in the rough for that bullpen?
Yeah, I was intrigued by it. Clearly they see something that the analytic people think that they can, and maybe that's pretty much the tip of the iceberg. But they must see something that they like in him. He had his moments with the Angels last year in some bullpen outings. He's not too far removed from having been a starter that he couldn't be a starter, but me with relief pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where he would fit in, that they'd see him in some role in the bullpen.
Yeah, maybe somebody who can, be a gap reliever, or somebody who can kind of be a multi-inning reliever to kind of, if a pitcher goes a little short in a start. I do think it's an interesting move. If you're getting that many whiffs on a sinker, it means that you've got some nasty stuff. So it'll be interesting to see his role in spring training, how they view him, and if he's able to make that roster entering into.
They they may also view him as an early project for Chris Holt. That they see something in him, and maybe he'll start the season at in Norfolk and work as a starter, and maybe they'll happen upon something that turns him into a more consistent pitcher.
Yeah,
He doesn't. It's a nice organizational move. There's no question about it.
Surely. And, when you factor that in, leads me to Shintaro Fujinami. We do know that he is a free agent as soon as the World Series ends. The Orioles have that 5-day window to negotiate with him. Do you anticipate that the Orioles will bring him back and have him be another project for Chris Holt? Because you can't have too many power arms that can throw sinkers like that.
I would think that the Orioles would be interested in him, in light of the fact that they'll be without Felix Bautista all year, and we know that now. In shaping their bullpen next year, I certainly could see him finding a role. But it's up to him to find that consistency that he needs. You just can't. His role and how much he's going to make and all that, it's really all hinges on trustworthiness, and when you have a guy with that kind of stuff and you can't even fit him, you have Jake Webb and Brian Baker make the postseason roster over him. Doesn't mean giving up on him, but it means that their eyes are wide open that he wasn't trustworthy enough in the postseason.
No,
The irony is that Webb gives up 2 home runs, and Baker walks 3 batters, and they didn't prove to be. But the fact that he was behind them in the pecking order should give you some indication of where they are with him. Then they can't give him a lot of rope, but the regular season provides you with enough rope to see if you can not hang yourself.
Absolutely. And you bring up a couple of guys. I think Webb will still be here next year. Do you think Brian Baker is still part of this organization in 2024?
I don't. I don't. I think that they lost their confidence in him sometime in July, right around that time. Remember, he gave up the big grand slam home run to the Dodgers in that game. That game we were in front, I believe, when they gave up that grand slam. No, I don't think he'll be back. And Webb is a so-so for me. I liked him initially when I saw him. I liked him when I saw him a couple of times with the Angels. But he just did not. He did not. As Tom Ward wore me out a little bit. I didn't like what I saw.
Yeah, we saw why he was DFA'd by the Angels, and he came on really strong once the Orioles picked him up for that last month, for a month and a half or so, and then he absolutely fell apart the second half of September and in the postseason, to the point where now you wonder if he's a fringe roster candidate, if he's a candidate at all. And then the final pitcher I want to ask you about is Cole Irvin. He was brought in by the Orioles. They traded their 6th best infield prospect in Darryl Hernandez to the Athletics to get Cole Irvin. He lasted all of 3 starts before being demoted to the minors. He was on that shuttle all season. Proved more of an effective reliever than a starter. I'm sure he's still going to be here next year because he's still under team control. But what role do you envision the Orioles using him in? Is he going back to a rotation candidate, or you think he's going to be worked out as a reliever only?
It was certainly strange the way they handled him. We've talked about this a couple times, but how quickly they moved on from him and thought that it would be better for him in the organization, for him to be in the minors, how quickly that happened, made me think it was almost like, Jesus, what did we acquire here? But I watched him carefully, because I like the guy, and I still see a quality major league pitcher there. He's not going to dominate. There's no question about that. But he can certainly be a useful piece on a major league pitching staff. A little too early to tell what role they have in mind for him, because that would have to fall into do they go out and try and acquire somebody like a top guy, like a Shane Bieber, and how that would impact the rotation. Do they bring Gibson back? Is Means healthy? So it's a little too early for me to suggest what role he'd have walking into spring training. But I would think they'd still view him as a starting candidate and want him to work toward that. And then it's always much easier to slot somebody in that fails a little bit or isn't quite what you're looking for there to fit him into a long role. So we'll see.
Yeah,
but I expect him to be on the team.
Well, with Austin Voth opting out to and electing free agency starting this offseason, I can envision them looking at Cole Irvin as being more effective, filling that role a little bit more effectively than Austin Voth did. And that way you stretch him out as a starter in spring training, and then you put him in your bullpen as that swing guy, that long relief guy who can give you a spot start here or there. I think that might be how they end up using him. But like you said, way too early to tell. It's not even November yet, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yep.
Stan, what do you got coming up for us?
Tuesday night at Tuesday late afternoon, 4:30. Going to have Rick Dempsey on with Ross Grimsley.
Oh, excellent. Rick Dempsey. Does Rick Dempsey still live in the area, or is he out in California these days?
Well, he lives in California, but he's got a business proposition he's working on right now with the Baseball Warehouse. He's got a facility. I think it's in the Severna Park area that it's being operated by Baseball Warehouse, but his name is attached to it, and it's a new proposition that he's working on with them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Stan, we certainly look forward to that. We look forward to speaking with you next week. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful fall weekend, all right?
All right. Thanks, guys. Have
Thank
a good
you.
weekend.
You
Bye.
too. See ya.
Bye.
And that was Stan the Fan Charles back for his weekly segment. I want to remind you, Stan the Fan Charles continues his weekly baseball show throughout the playoffs and the offseason. Every Monday, Stan is joined by former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley and Press Box's managing editor Luke Jackson to break down the latest with the Birds. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein will chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. You can watch the shows live at facebook.com/pressbox or find them the next day at pressboxonline.com/video and youtube.com/pressboxonline. As Stan just alluded to, he will be speaking with Rick Dempsey on Tuesday at 4:30. You do not want to miss it. When we come back in, Ryan Ripken will join us on the show. That and more next on the Batter Round.
Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door. Just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code PRESSBOX23. So bet with the best and use promo code PRESSBOX23 this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Todd Karpovich profiles the Orioles survivors, Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Ryan Mountcastle, who all came from the previous regime but stuck through tough times to be key pieces in guiding the franchise back to prominence. Also inside, we remember the iconic Brooks Robinson with tributes from Jim Henneman and myself, Stan the Fan Charles, and a trip down memory lane to remember the most significant moments of his career. Plus, we meet players from college basketball programs around the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
6 chicken tenders made from fresh, never frozen Royal Farms world-famous chicken, a family-sized order of Western fries, honey mustard dipping sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. It's Royal Farms' new Tucker's Tenders Meal. It's Justin Tucker's favorite, and at only $19.99, it'll be your favorite meal, too. The new Tucker's Tenders Meal, available only at Royal Farms. Now you can kick back, relax, and eat like a champion. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food? Check. Quality of service? Check. Does the restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does the restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
The Baltimore County Police Department is now hiring with competitive salaries, including for experienced police officers, starting salaries between over $68,000 and over $82,000 based on your prior service time, accepting up to 7 years of service times with only 6 weeks in the academy, minimum of 2 years prior experience. And police cadet starting salaries at over $32,000 must be between the ages of 18 and 20, but you can apply starting at 17 and a half. Must have a high school diploma or GED equivalent at the time of the hire, U.S. citizen at the time of the hire, and a valid driver's license. So if you have a passion for service and want a career for life, now is the time to join the Baltimore County Police Department. Call 410-887-5542 or visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Back in live here on the Bat Around, just a few minutes, and we will have Ryan Ripken joining us on the show. I want to remind you today's show is brought to you by PressBox's Glenn Clark Radio, which is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. You can watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys are joined by ESPN's Mike Tannenbaum, Fox Sports' Tom Rinaldi, former Rams coach Mike Martz, and Orioles pitching prospect Carter Baumler. You can find those interviews in this week's Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. Carter Baumler. This was a guy that the Orioles paid a significant amount of money. They went over slot with him to get him to forego his commitment to college.
Right.
He was drafted in, the 5th round of the 2020 Major League Draft. A draft that only lasted 5 rounds. He pitched in their fall instructional leagues and tore his UCL. Had to have Tommy John surgery. He came back about a year later. Looked okay, but he's had more injuries since then. What are your thoughts on Carter Baumler? I don't know much about him at this point. He referred to himself as a more athletic Zach Greinke when the Orioles drafted him. How is this another project for Chris Holt to try and get him to rediscover who he was and what made them want to give him that much money?
I hope his velo isn't Zach Greinke. That would be bad.
Well, Zach Greinke had velo when he was Baumler's age.
He did. But Baumler, I just haven't seen enough. I really don't know. He hasn't had the chance to really show people yet who he is, I think. But he'll have that chance most likely this year. And he's a guy who probably would have gone higher than the 5th round if he had been I'm assuming the UCL injury came up in the pre-draft stuff or something along those lines.
No, he got hurt after.
Was that
after
what?
He'd been
Okay.
drafted. It was. I think it was in fall instructs in 2021.
He was better than a 5th round prospect, though. And that point stands. He was better than that kind of guy. And he went there, and a lot of people called it one of the steals of the draft, which is what people say for like every pick of every draft ever. But regardless of the point, Carter Baumler was probably a 3rd round talent the Orioles got late. So I think he's still very young. Injuries beside him, he is going to have a chance to actually show people who he is. But I just don't know what that looks like yet. I just think it's going to be a lot of him showing us what he has, but I just don't know what that is.
Well, and the time is now for him to really get his career
now.
off and running. Drafted in 2020, has the injury in fall instructs in 2021, misses most of 2022, or maybe the injury was in fall. I think the injury was in fall instructs of 2020, and missed all of 2021 and the first part of 2022. Came back and pitched fairly effectively in 3-inning spurts here and there.
Yeah.
But then I can't remember what the other injury was for him that caused him to miss a lot of the 2023 season. But look, man, you're now about to be 4 years removed from being drafted, and you haven't pitched above low A.
Right.
At
I
this
mean,
point, it's
low
time.
A.
It's time to get it going.
He's throwing 28 whole innings in the minors.
Yeah.
So that's not going to really tell you what he is. This is the season that he's going to have to stay healthy and show you what he is. If he's something, then we'll start. I'm sure everyone will start talking about it on Twitter, and people start noticing. Eric Garfield will probably notice. He always gives us the inside scoop on prospects on Twitter, and he'll probably notice this guy doing something at the low levels.
Sure.
And maybe we'll see him move up. Who knows? He could get to Bowie this year if he works hard enough and he's that good. But
that's gonna be quite a jump for a guy who's 28.
That would be
innings
tough.
in
Well,
4 seasons.
I would think he starts at high A Aberdeen. I would think.
Maybe.
I would think so. And then he would have just one rung to jump.
What were his numbers like in his little bit of time?
The numbers were good. In 28 and 2/3 innings, he had a 2.51 ERA, struck out almost 13 guys per 9. The numbers were good.
Okay.
But then again, this is a 5th-round pick competing against guys that are in the FCL, more or less, and then got to Delmarva for only 9 innings. So that's not a lot of sample size in Delmarva.
He'll probably start the season at Delmarva and earn his way up to high A, maybe with an outside chance to reach double A towards the end of the year once high A is done playing. I think high A and double A kind of end around the same time. But he might be able to. I mean, if he pitches away, he should be able to earn at least consideration.
And I read this wrong. He actually had more innings in Delmarva last year in the FCL. So he had 9 innings in Delmarva, where he had 8 innings in the FCL. So I guess it's kind of an even mix for him.
Sure.
And then 11 innings in Delmarva the year he got. Not the year he got drafted, but the year he came back in 2022. So really small sample size across the board.
Maybe he does start out at high A. Well, that remains to be seen.
He's what now? 22 years old, I think, going into next season. That's probably about right for high A. That's maybe even a little on the older side for high A.
Yeah. I would imagine that he should probably get his start in high A then. Zach's going to get Ryan Ripken on the line. I want to remind you that the place to be after this and every Ravens game this season is Pressbox's Project Game Day. Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, and former Ravens Super Bowl champion Femi Ayambadejo will react live to every game, offering their truly uncensored opinions about the team's decisions and results in each game. Plus, they'll be joined by other special guests during the year, and you can chime in live during each show as well. Watch the shows live at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, and check Glenn Clark Radio or the NFL Chick on Twitter for a Zoom link that will allow you to be a part of the show. So join Glenn, Rita, and Femi tomorrow after Ravens Cardinals and every game day this season. Project Game Day is brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. Joining us now, he is the host of the Ryan Ripken Show on YouTube on Mondays and Thursdays, plus the Off Script podcast with Nick Moore. He is Ryan Ripken. Ryan, it's Paul, it's Zach. Thanks for taking the time for us here on a beautiful Saturday morning.
Of course. Glad to join you guys. It's kind of crazy how beautiful the weather is, and I can't believe it's November next week? So
yeah.
But hey, I'm not complaining.
Zach's over here complaining. He doesn't like warm weather in the fall, yet he's wearing shorts, although I caught him wearing sweatpants in July. I don't know what's going on with this kid. But, Ryan, last night, World Series, were you able to stay up to watch the whole game?
So I had to miss parts of it early, but I did not miss the real drama and theatrics. And I went back then and watched everything. But could you ask for a better game one?
Oh,
honestly?
Absolutely not. And then when you look at it, Ryan, we do this game called Take to Rake on the show. And last week we took all Astros and Phillies players thinking Phillies, Astros in the World Series, it's a done deal. You get Rangers, Diamondbacks, and people are kind of like, this wasn't what we wanted, especially an all-indoor World Series. And then one of the most epic game ones that I can remember in recent history. Hell of a way to start out the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, and it felt like a heavyweight bout for the heavyweight bout was supposed to be Phillies and Astros, like you were saying. And it turned out to be these two teams that just had punch after punch. The Rangers start off hot, then the D-backs come right back. And then just when you think the D-backs are going to have this done, their bullpen's been so dominant. What happens? Corey Seager, who is proven that he's one of the best players in the league, ties the game up on an iconic home run, and then Garcia, it's his postseason, it's his world. You know, we're just all witnessing it. So if we have more of those games in line, I sign me up, and I really do think that these two teams are going to put on a show for the rest of the Fall Classic.
Oh, tonight's matchup you're getting the Rangers' best pitcher in Jordan Montgomery against one of the Diamondbacks' best pitchers in Merrill Kelly. What do you anticipate going on in tonight's game 2? You have two pitchers that would lead you to think it's going to be a pitcher's duel, but these lineups have been proving all postseason that they can put up runs in a hurry.
Yeah, I think it's every time we think we have an idea of how it's going to go, right? Especially in the postseason, it just doesn't. You know, and even though as great as Montgomery has been, you know, he can be prone to not having as strong a starts because of the flow of the game, how well the lineups are swinging the bat, and you know, other factors, right? I mean, even that game in Baltimore when Montgomery pitched, he didn't have his best outing. It just was the fact that the Rangers lineup drew a lot of walks and they were up big, right? But so I think you would want to say that, yes, it could be a pitching matchup, but I think we're going to see a lot of the same where if a team can just get one thing going, you know, make the pitchers work and get someone on base, both teams have proven that they can strike and strike quickly. So I might not expect it to be a 6-5 final. You know, maybe it could be a little bit, I guess, lower scoring if you want to say that, but I definitely think we're going to see these two lineups challenge these pitchers just because they're swinging the bat with a lot of confidence.
How important was it for the Rangers to win Game 1 at home, to be able to hold serve, knowing that their ace is going in Game 2? And if they go up 2-0, you know, we saw the Diamondbacks go down 2-0 to the Phillies and still come roaring back to win that series. But how much of the do you think that the Rangers are just going to run away with this thing if they're able to get Game 2 under their belts as well?
Well, I think the factor, first off, that the Rangers weren't winning many games at home. I mean, the only home win that they had was the series clincher in the playoffs against the Orioles. They're 8-0 on the road in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, you're like, man, we're winning games where we're supposed to win games, and that makes you feel better when you're about to go on the road that you can do anything. Now, on the flip side, though, like you said, the Diamondbacks are fearless. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if they lose tonight and they drop down 0-2, they're going to keep battling back. But I think for the Rangers, it's you want to try to keep applying the pressure. You want to try to keep putting your best foot forward because, as we've seen, you never want to give a team an extra opportunity. And what I mean by that is if a team has life, you never know what can happen. And we just saw that in the championship series for the Diamondbacks, where the Phillies were up 3-2, and there was a glimmer of hope going back to Philly. And quite frankly, I didn't expect the D-backs to go and take 2 there. But the point is the D-backs had life. And then they win that Game 6. They even have more life. And then there's more belief. And then you find a way, when you look up at the end of it, and go that you can pull it off. So I think that's more of the big thing with Texas is don't give a Diamondbacks team that has nothing to lose any more confidence that they already have.
Ryan, the Diamondbacks were 10 games under 500 over the season's final 3 months. They were 8 games under 500 at a point in August. They lost their last 4 games of the season and backed into the playoffs. How miraculous is this run for them to get not only into the postseason, but then advance all the way to the World Series?
Yeah, I mean, up until the playoffs, there was the opposite of what you want to do. You're playing your worst ball at the wrong time, you know. And look, that's a little bit rare. You know, usually we see teams get hot and ride the momentum. You know, on the other side, Texas, they're riding the momentum. And last year it was the Phillies and the Padres, you know, building up at the right point. So it is rare to see that. But it also goes to show you it does just take one game. And when the Diamondbacks knew that they were in, and it looked to me down the stretch for them of the season, you're a younger team. You have some guys that are still trying to figure out some pieces. You're in a tough division. You know, you start thinking a little bit too much, and you're stressing a little bit more. But now it's like, you know, it's a clean slate. You go into the playoffs, and after they had that comeback win against Milwaukee in Game 1, it just looked like it clicked of going, oh, hey, we're back.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just where we want to be. But again, the way that they did it is kind of rare. because we can see momentum's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is. And so for the Diamondbacks to flip it that quickly is a testament to them and their coaching staff.
Yeah, and like you said, getting that come from behind victory in Game 1 against Milwaukee, at that point, they're probably thinking, we're not even supposed to be here. We're playing with house money, and it just makes you play loose. And so you go out there and play your best brand because the expectations are low anyway. So kudos to the Diamondbacks for being able to pull it off and make one of the most miraculous runs in postseason history, in my humble opinion. One more question about this World Series before we get to some Orioles talk before we got to let you go. Jordan Montgomery, the way he's pitched this postseason, the way he's pitched basically since he got traded to the Cardinals from the Yankees last year's deadline, this dude's getting the bag in this offseason, is he not? He's going to be probably the most sought-after free agent pitcher, I'd have to imagine.
Yeah, he's definitely, you talk about earning your next contract he has.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is the moment. It's interesting, right, about how much he's bounced around because teams are trying to figure out if he could be this type of pitcher and going into the postseason and have that type of impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, you just got to have that opportunity and then seize that opportunity. Jordan seized the opportunity. And down the stretch for the season, too, he was great. He really was. And you can argue, or it might not even be an argument, that he was the best trade acquisition. I'm talking about guys that came over that have really impacted their team. So Montgomery's definitely going to get a big contract. And if you're asking me if the Orioles are going to go out and get them, I don't know about that because they're all about value. But for Jordan Montgomery himself, he's rightfully earned a big contract, and be curious to see if that will be something that he'd want to stay in Texas or go somewhere else.
Yeah, that guy's going to get paid, and it really kind of just shows you how difficult it is to pitch in New York, to see how different he's been since getting traded last midseason last year. Some Orioles stuff we want to go over quickly with you. Brandon Hyde, Mike Elias, Gunnar Henderson, they received top honors from their peers through the Sporting News yearly awards. Brandon Hyde, Manager of the Year, Mike Elias, Executive of the Year, and Gunnar Henderson, Rookie of the Year. We know these aren't the official awards. When people look back at their careers, nobody's going to remember that they won the Sporting News accolades. But how important are these awards to these recipients, knowing that they were voted upon by their peers and not by the Players Association?
Yeah, I think just in general, when you start to get awards and get recognized for some big accomplishments, right? This is a fantastic year for the ball club. Disappointing finish, but an unbelievable season. And especially where the teams come, and that's the beauty of it. And I do expect, when the other awards come out, it should be Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias and Gunnar Henderson.
Sure.
Those, to me, should be those because of the season that the organization had. So I think it's a building step. It's a stepping stone. And the goal now is, you want to go out there and win more games and go and win a championship. That's your ultimate goal. But I think when this is going to be the first steps, or actually I should say the first wave of Orioles being recognized and being in these award discussions, because we've talked about it. The window's now, it's been open, officially open, and we think the team's only going to get better and more competitive if that's even possible. And if that's the case, then we're going to see a lot more awards and recognition like we did this past week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Gunnar Henderson has at least one, if not multiple, MVPs that he's going to win throughout his career. It's going to be interesting to see how these careers unfold moving forward. With that window as wide open as you said that it is. And with that in mind, the Orioles this offseason, they have a few needs. We all think that it's probably going to be that they need a top of the rotation type of starting pitcher, probably another decent relief arm. And in my opinion, Ryan, I think they really need a veteran middle of the order bat to kind of take some of the pressure off guys like Santander and Ryan Mountcastle. Your thoughts on what the Orioles need and how they'll go about getting those pieces this offseason?
Well, I've told people from the beginning, you got to identify what you want to do in-house first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once you identify that, then you make a decision on how you want to create your bullpen and your starting rotation. But you can never have enough good pitching, right? So I think now I do expect the Orioles to really take a look at what that could be and what that would entail. But I've told people this as well. I don't know if the Orioles are going to go and overpay for a guy in free agency.
Sure.
I really don't. But do I think the Orioles will be way more aggressive at next year's deadline? Absolutely, especially if the team's playing well. And to your point about a veteran bat, I think in general, besides just having players, and this is for pitching too, I could say, obviously the going out and having success is important. The stats, being able to impact the game, but the veteran presence that we saw that guys like Kyle Gibson and Adam Frazier had on this ball club, James McCann, those are guys that you can't quantify with data. So
Sure.
I think the Orioles are definitely going to look at, is there an upgrade that we could possibly have that can plug in, can be more of an impactful player, and can also bring that same type of leadership to their clubhouse? I think that's all going to be into it, and I'll be curious. But the Orioles, too, if people are thinking about a DH, the Orioles like being versatile, so I don't know if they're just going to go for just one bat. They're going to want guys to be able to do multiple roles would be my guess.
Now, I look at a guy like Justin Turner, who I thought the Orioles should have gone after last year, and that's a guy who primarily plays third base, DH. Is this a guy who you think that the Orioles could target as a veteran infielder? Because we know they like to go after these veteran infielders because you need that in a clubhouse, especially a clubhouse with so many young players. And I think that's a guy you can slot right into the top half of your batting order. You know that he's probably going to be good for 30 to 40 doubles, 20 home runs, 80 to 100 RBIs every season. Or is he limited defensively that might not be a move that the Orioles think they should make?
So I heard everything but the name.
Justin Turner.
Justin Turner, okay. Good. I've actually been asked about Justin Turner as well. And on his ability, absolutely as a hitter, but it goes back to the Orioles' philosophy is what do you want to do with your lineup and as far as versatility?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen how many times the Orioles DH different players, from Ryan Mountcastle, Ryan O'Hearn, Santander, Adley Rutschman, variation, right? So for Justin Turner, I don't know if the Orioles would be willing to have him be in the field as much, just given their young, talented defensive players.
Sure.
And so that's where the question is. But if the Orioles do change it and go, you know what, we think we need more offense, I think then the fit would be good because Justin Turner, to me, one of the most underrated hitters we've had over the last decade. So I'm with you on that, where he just does so many things right.
Yeah.
And so many things that can help a team. But again, philosophy-wise with the Orioles, are they going to want to limit themselves to a guy that most likely will be taking up a DH spot when they have so many other players that they want to rotate in and out of the lineup?
Yeah, it's a fair point, and the reason that I brought it up, because he would seem like the most likely candidate, and it would be fitting to see a guy with such a solid career end his career where it all started. But it might be a pipe dream to get Justin Turner in Baltimore for the 2024 season. Before we let you get a plug here, Ryan, one last question I want to ask you. Being a former player, what does an off season look like for a player? The season ends, you take some time off, and then you ramp baseball activities back up. What does that look like for a player?
Man, well, what I like to do right after is take a couple weeks to reset, maybe have some more tequila to really reset if I need to. But in general, it's a time of reflection. Let your body rest, let your mind rest for a week or two, and then you slowly kind of get back into your workout routine. Some guys like to take a little bit more time off, and then probably by mid-November, you're starting to schedule and ramp yourself slowly back up, right? And then you're trying to get yourself ready for February. I think that's the crazy part. We're looking at the teams in the World Series or the postseason teams. By the time you take your rest and relaxation time, you look up and you got about 3 months or less of time to really be ready. So that's really what it is. And for most of those guys, that 1 to 2 week period is, what do I want to work on too? You're letting your mind reset, but you're going, what did I do really well? What is going to be my focus for next year? And then you really, nail that down. So everyone has different routines. Some guys like to take longer off, but that's usually what I did is mid-November, things ramp up. and by the time the new year hits, I'm almost in the full mode of, spring training's here, I'm ready to go.
It's interesting. It really is a full-time job with not much of a break. So thank you for giving us kind of that inside look at what it can be like in the off season for a player. What do you got coming up in the coming weeks, and what do you got in the works for us?
Well, let's see. Yeah, like you said, I do the Ryan Ripken show every Monday and Thursday. Obviously football's hot right now, but I'm still a baseball guy at heart, so we have a lot more things planned there and people we're going to have on and talk to. Still doing some radio stuff with 105.7, Fox 45, And, I'm on Twitter, Ryan Ripken. Just, you have any questions, Paul, just shoot me a message, and usually I try to get back. I love being able to interact and answer people's sports questions, specifically baseball, as much as I can.
Yeah, you're really good at interacting on Twitter. One of the things I love about you is that you're very accessible. So, Ryan, thank you for taking some time on a busy Saturday for yourself. Go enjoy some college football, and hopefully we'll talk to you again down the line, all right?
Yeah, sounds good. Enjoy this summer, fall day, I guess.
Yeah, right. I'm going to do my best to do so. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
See ya. That was Ryan Ripken. Always great talking with Ryan. Just a wealth of knowledge about baseball and about all sports in general.
Oh, yeah.
It's really incredible. Just, people that are athletes that have played at the professional level, how in tune they are with not just their own sport, but with all sports. It takes a special kind of person to be a professional athlete. You've got to know a lot about a lot. So
it's always the most interesting part to do what you just did at the very end of that interview and ask them about how they prepared and what they did to their bodies to get ready, because you don't see that. That's the one thing you don't see. You see what happens on the field. You hear a lot about what happens in the locker room, but you don't hear about off-season preparation. That's the one time where we're not going to see Adley Rutschman for the most part during the off-season. So it's really interesting to hear how these guys get ready to go, because they're different animals. They are not normal in the way they're physically composed. So it's very, very interesting to hear that perspective.
It's crazy because you expect that when the season ends, they maybe take a vacation, they go spend some time with family, they hit the golf course for a few weeks, and then they probably get back in the gym and work out.
Right.
But I always just assumed that they kind of, got through the holidays and then really started hitting and throwing programs in January. It's interesting to know that they get started in November.
Yeah.
If they aren't fortunate enough to make the postseason, season ends in September. Maybe they take a few weeks in October into November and, just do stuff for them, and then they're right back at it.
And what I've always thought is really interesting is you have limits as a player on what the team allows you to do in the offseason.
Sure.
I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been LeBron, possibly. I don't know who it was. But there was a very well-known player, I believe it was a basketball player, who got injured playing football a few years ago. And the team said, no more, can't do that. Not allowed to do that. And then we saw Lamar Jackson throwing a football around on a beach and almost getting decked by a jet ski.
Yeah.
So you see stuff like this and you think it would kind of suck not to be able to do what you want to do, like not just be able to go play pickup basketball if you're Ryan Ripken in the offseason. You can't do that. So it's interesting.
The other thing is that when you're making that kind of money, right? And we're talking about players that have reached the highest level. You're making that kind of money. You know what your body needs. You know what you need to do to get ready.
Right.
And you don't want to risk anything. Like I'm sure that a lot of these guys aren't thinking to themselves, I want to go play touch football. I want to go play pickup basketball. They're probably thinking, nah, man, I'm going to stick to baseball. That's what got me here. I'm going to work out.
Maybe.
I'm going to play some golf. I'm going to take some nice vacations with the fam. And I'm just going to get back in the gym. I'm going to get my swings in, get my throws in, and get myself ready. I can't imagine being a professional baseball player and having you might get that competitive fire, but for me, I know the way that I work out now and the way that I approach the men's Sunday 30 and over baseball league, and I start hitting in January and start throwing in January, and I have no desire to I like to play basketball, I like to play football, but the last time I played football, I separated my AC joint.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to do that again, and I don't have any money on the line for it. So
let me know when you start throwing this year. We'll throw the ball around a little bit. I need to get back into throwing a baseball. I miss that. I do miss throwing a baseball.
Yeah, and since we're not going to be doing the show together anymore, man,
let's throw around a baseball.
It's funny how much you lose contact with people that you work with once you stop working.
I bet.
And I hate it.
That is the worst.
I absolutely hate it. And you and I have developed Oh, God. You and I have developed
He's about to cry again, folks.
We've developed a really nice friendship because of this
No
show.
doubt. No doubt.
We've golfed together. You've come to my house to watch football
Yep.
games with me. We've gone to baseball games together, met up at football games together. I don't want to lose that. Because we're not doing the show anymore.
Absolutely
so I
not.
definitely
No.
want to get, even though you're living down close to D.C. now, I'd love to get together to throw the ball around, maybe catch a game or two.
Absolutely.
You catch a round of golf. And maybe I'll
Absolutely.
come down to you to play some golf because
Yeah.
I've never tried golf courses down in that area.
My brother lives in Rockville, so decently close, and he says that Blue Mash down in Rockville, or Gaithersburg, Rockville area, is one of the nicest courses he's ever played. So
Really?
I'm still trying to get out there at some point, but haven't found the time yet.
Let me know when you get out there, man.
Yeah, we'll play Blue Mash for sure.
Blue Mash.
Blue Mash.
What a name. Blue Mash.
It's a cool name. It's a cool
Yeah,
name.
It is a cool name. I like it. Blue Mash. All right, we got to catch a break. Want to remind you today's show is brought to you by the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now. On the cover, Todd Karpovich profiles the Orioles survivors, Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Ryan Mountcastle, who all came from the previous regime, but stuck through tough times to be key pieces in guiding the franchise back to prominence. Also inside, we remember the iconic Brooks Robinson with tributes from Jim Henneman and Stan the Fan Charles, and a trip down memory lane to remember the most significant moments of his career. Plus, we meet players from all of the college basketball programs around the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com. When we come back in, Zach's going to sound off on a manager who should be deserving of the Hall of Fame, but we're not sure how much he really is deserving. And then we'll get to some Orioles banter, some baseball banter, and take to Rake. That's next on the Bat Around.
The Baltimore County Police Department is now hiring with competitive salaries, including for experienced police officers, starting salaries between over $68,000 and over $82,000 based on your prior service time, accepting up to 7 years of service times with only 6 weeks in the academy, minimum of 2 years prior experience. And police cadet starting salaries at over $32,000 must be between the ages of 18 and 20, but you can apply starting at 17 and a half. Must have a high school diploma or GED equivalent at the time of the hire, U.S. citizen at the time of the hire, and a valid driver's license. So if you have a passion for service and want a career for life, now is the time to join the Baltimore County Police Department. Call 410-887-5542 or visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Come for a game, stay for everything else. Book an unforgettable fall getaway in Charm City. Enjoy only in Baltimore festivals, mouthwatering eats, and endless entertainment. Treat yourself to a staycation in the heart of downtown or try one of the city's many charming neighborhood hotels. And don't miss out on packages for free parking, breakfast, and more. Plan your stay at baltimore.org/hotels.
Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door. Just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code PRESSBOX23. So bet with the best and use promo code PRESSBOX23 this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
What's up, everyone? It's Tyus Bowser, and I've had so much fun hanging out with Rita and putting up with Glenn the last couple years that I've decided to do it again. Season 3 of the Tyus Bowser Show is happening this year, as we'll be all over town, giving you the chance to get to know me and some of my teammates. As we talk football, life in general, and just say what needs to be said. You can find out more about the show by going to PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. If you don't live in the area, you can watch the shows live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you miss one, you can listen Friday nights at 105.7 The Fan. So we'll see you all season long for the Tyus Bowser Show Show, a partnership of Press Box and Great Ace Memorabilia.
The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, November 7th at Guilford Home Brewery in Station North. It's brought to you by AJ Michaels, Superbook Sports, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org.
Welcome back into the Bat Around. Today's show brought to you by the Tyus Bowser Show, which is back for Season 3. Tyus and his special guests will join Glenn and Rita all over town throughout the season, giving you the chance to get the inside scoop and rub elbows with your favorite players. The Tyus Bowser Show is a partnership of Pressbox and Great Eights Memorabilia, and it's brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. For more information, visit PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, November 7th at Guilford Hall Brewery in Station North. I hate saying that
Guilford
name. There's so many L's and U's in there. Guilford Hall Brewery.
Do you have a pen over there? This one died. Pens always die. Hello.
I wung it at him. He managed to catch it off the chest. He managed to catch it.
I did catch that.
I flung that thing at him. I knew that the pen wasn't open, so that it wouldn't stab you in the eyeball.
It's okay.
Are you left-handed?
I am left-handed.
What?
You've never noticed that? 3.5 years of doing this show, and he hasn't noticed that.
I think that I noticed it one other time, because I think I remember sitting in this exact chair, saying, "Are you left-handed?" and then being like, "You swing right-handed."
Yeah, I do. I do a lot. I play golf right-handed. I swing a baseball bat right-handed. What else do I do? There's a couple other things.
I don't need to know the other things you do.
Stop. Okay. All right, you weirdo.
But you write left-handed. Do you play the piano left-handed?
I've never played the piano.
I don't think that's a thing.
No, I don't think it is either.
Yeah.
I play guitar left-handed though.
Well, all right.
That counts.
You ever seen
like Paul McCartney? Me and him are kindred spirits.
You ever see role models when they're like, you're like that one guy that kind of knows how to play the acoustic guitar and he brings it to the campsite?
Yeah, that is me exactly. I'm not good, but like it's enough.
Love, take me down.
Here's
to
the thing. I can play a number of. Well, I shouldn't say a number. I can play most like songs I like. It's not going to be at a high level. But you would.
So you
it's
play
enough,
all Bruce Springsteen and nothing else.
Well, sure. But here's the thing: you'd recognize the songs. Like if I'm playing "I'm on Fire," your favorite Bruce Springsteen song, you'd recognize it. It wouldn't be high level. Like I'm not going to do it like Bruce is.
Is that the "Hey Little Girl, Is Your Daddy Home" song?
That's the song.
Ugh. Golly, man! I sent Zach a TikTok about that.
He sure did. He sure
the
did.
other day. And it's just like, how did that song? How did they allow that song to be recorded? Hey, little girl, is your daddy home? Did it go and leave you all alone? It's creepy.
You should hear. There's a version by
I shouldn't hear it.
Town Mountain, I believe is the band's name. They're like an Appalachian mountain band. You know what I'm talking about? Like the banjos and like they're gonna play
bluegrass.
in like a That's a good bluegrass. I should have said that. I don't know why I said Appalachian mountain band, but you know what I mean. Anyway, like they're a band you would see in like a brewery with IPAs and stuff, like in the middle of like North Carolina. I don't know. Point is that they made a version of "I'm on Fire" that's way better than the original. It's really good. Banjos the whole time. It's awesome.
There's no way that any version of that song is good just because the lyrics are so criminally creepy.
Yeah,
they are criminally creepy.
How dare Bruce say that?
Finally, you're on my side.
I think I'm not getting into it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into it. I'm not trying to. I don't need to defend Bruce.
Yeah.
He's got enough money to defend himself.
Anyway, so start defending yourself with your take for sounding off.
Well, actually, we had a comment about it. I don't remember from who. Oh, it was from AJ. It was from AJ. AJ was talking about Bruce Bochy and being the best manager of his lifetime, which, and I don't know what AJ's lifetime is. I don't know how old he is. I think that may be an accurate statement. 3 World Series, manager of the year, could be another fourth World Series now for Bruce Bochy, and I don't believe he's lost a World Series yet. I could be wrong. I know in 1998 it's possible Bruce Bochy did, but I can't remember. He was there.
Yeah, he was. He was.
I think he might have lost
the
one.
Padres, and they got swept by the Yankees.
This was information I learned like 3 minutes ago. So, but Bruce Bochy has actually career more losses than he does wins. But that's not. I wouldn't say that's all that uncommon for a lot of Hall of Fame managers. If you manage over 4,000 games like Bruce Bochy has, and he's won over 2,000 of them, you're going to lose some games in those stretches as well. And what's interesting about Bruce Bochy, and we talked about this last week on the show, the Giants won, 3 times in 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. But the 2 seasons that they didn't win were second and third place finishes. It wasn't like they even went to the playoffs. Right. They didn't go to the playoffs. They didn't go far. So it's really interesting that he gets to the playoffs and he just wins. That's what Bruce Bochy does. He goes through right now. They're in the playoffs. They're one up against the Diamondbacks. He won 3 times with the Giants in the span of 5 years. Bruce Bochy is going to be a Hall of Famer. But do you agree, Paul, with AJ's statement that he is one of the best managers in your lifetime?
No.
Okay.
No, because, look, what he's done has been incredible. But my lifetime spans maybe a little bit longer than AJ's.
I don't know. I'm not sure how. I have no idea how old AJ is.
He's up there, but, I mean, Joe Torre. Joe Torre managed in my lifetime. He took his team to the World Series in 96, 98, 99, 2000, 2003. I think they went again in 2006, but lost. No, they didn't go in 2006. They went in 2003, and then I think they went again in 2008 when they lost to the Phillies.
That sounds right.
I think it was.
That sounds right.
And then... but I don't know that he was a manager in 2008. I know Joe Girardi. He may have been. I think he was a manager in 2008.
I think Girardi came around in 2009, if I remember correctly.
Girardi won the World Series in 2009, and that was his first season, I believe. I'm going
to check on that. I think that's right.
I mean, they were one of the greatest dynasties of my lifetime, and Joe Torre was at the helm the entire way. Davey Johnson will always hold a special place in my heart, though he only won World Series. And he won one World Series, and I was 2 when he won that World Series. But Bruce Bochy, he's got to be up there. I mean, when you look at it, Bruce Bochy, Bob Melvin, guys like that. And Joe Torre, to me, is the best manager of my lifetime. And then Bruce Bochy, it'd be hard to pick him lower than second or third.
So Girardi came in 2008 for the Yankees. I thought it was 2009, but it was 2008. And he won the World Series in 2009. Girardi, though, if you look at Girardi, and I would think most people consider him a great manager. I mean, over 1,000 wins in his career. Bruce Bochy has around 1,000 more. That should just put it into perspective of how great of a manager Bruce Bochy was. And you look at Girardi and you say, okay, he was a Yankees manager for the majority of his career until he got to Philly in 2020. But, man, that's really impressive to have over 1,000 more wins and a few more years tacked onto his belt as well than Joe Girardi. But that's really impressive. Bruce Bochy, I'm assuming this will be his last year managing. I would think so. There was an article that came out about him yesterday where his wife was against the decision, apparently, to go back and manage. She wasn't the happiest person about that because he hadn't managed since 2019 with the Giants when he left there. I don't know. This could be his last year. He's getting up there.
But it's his first year in Texas. And what kind of a contract do you have his page open? What kind of a contract did he
I don't know. I don't know how easy it is to find manager contracts. But for example, I'm not sure we know the concrete terms of Brandon Hyde's contract, but I can definitely look into that.
We have no. We don't. It's probably the most close to the vest thing about the Orioles. With it probably in all of baseball is the contract status of Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias.
Apparently, he's signed through 25. That's what an article from Dallas News says. So apparently, he is going to be signed through 25. But I can't imagine he's managing much longer. He could take his 4th World Series ring if they do win, and that's I would think that's both our expectations here. And he goes down. Maybe not the top in your lifetime, but certainly one of them. A 4 World Series under his belt. That would be pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you figure 4 World Series under his belt, 5 World Series appearances. That's a hell of a winning percentage.
It's amazing.
He's definitely a Hall of Famer. People aren't going to look at that losing record because you'd have to go back. I mean, he was managing the San Diego Padres in the 90s, and they were really bad until they weren't in 98.
The more I thought about that, I said, look, if you're going to manage over 4,000 games, 2,100 or so losses is not going to be an uncommon thing. That's just the way it goes.
Look at Buck Showalter and how much we love him here in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And how much winning he did with the Orioles for 5 years. His overall record in Baltimore is a losing record because of how bad they were in 2018. So you could look at Buck and you could say, oh, he wasn't a great manager. He was under 500 in Baltimore. Well, he came to Baltimore in 2010 when they were lousy. They were lousy again in 2011 because they didn't have the roster to be good. And then they were really good from 2012 through 2016, and then they were really bad. They were mediocre in 2017 and really bad in 2018. He had more good teams, far more good teams than bad teams in Baltimore, but the bad teams were so bad that it overshadows record-wise what he was able to accomplish in Baltimore. So it's one of those things, man, where you look at Bruce Bochy. Do you still have his page pulled up?
No, I just pulled up Buck Showalter's actually, and 1,700 wins for Buck Showalter, and 1727 for Showalter, and 1,665 losses for Showalter. That's a .509 winning percentage. Really good, but again, Bruce Bochy's got to be in that category. But it's just, you look at that and you go, that's incredible considering that Buck Showalter has never even managed a World Series game.
Well, I mean, and you look at Bruce Bochy, and you look at the teams that he managed. I mean, he managed the Padres from 95 through 2006, and they had 7 losing seasons in those 12 years that he was there. And that's not really through fault of his owner. Maybe it is, and maybe he got better because of that. Then you look, he goes to the Giants, and the Giants weren't a good team until in 2007 and 2008. But then after that, he didn't have another losing season until 2017 when they were just awful. Boy, I didn't realize they were 64-98 in 2017.
By the way, Bruce Bochy did what Bob Melvin just did. Went from the Padres to the Giants in 2006 and 2007. Bob Melvin goes to the Giants. So
something
that's interesting.
That we haven't even touched on is that Bob Melvin was granted access by the Padres, and this was his second season with the Padres. And they granted him...
Was it his second? I thought it was his first.
No, he managed them. Was it his first?
Are you sure? I'm going to look this up.
Because I think it was his second. Because I think that we expected them to be a lot better going into 2022 with Bob Melvin as the new manager, and they ended up going to the postseason and making it to the NLCS and losing to the Phillies. And then they were just awful this year. They got back...
You're right. It was the second. They
got back to 500 this year, but it took a monstrous September for them to get back to 500 on the season. It's kind of mind-blowing to me that they would allow Bob Melvin to go speak with the Giants and then sign with them.
It's Bob Melvin has now been with the Mariners, the Diamondbacks, the A's, the Padres, and now the Giants. That's a lot of teams in a managerial career in only how many years? 20 years. I mean, that's a long time, but that's a lot of teams as well to be around.
Yeah, it's an average of 4 years per team.
Very odd to me that they let him go in division.
Yeah.
Very odd to me.
I don't there had to have been maybe the front office interfered with how he wanted to manage.
Yeah.
Maybe there were things that they want to do with the roster that he's not on board with, and he's like, "Look, if you're going to tear this roster apart, I signed on to make this roster the best it can be, and if this is what you're planning on doing, I can't stand by that." And they were like, "Look, then you can go elsewhere."
Right.
Type of situation. We have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, but I can't imagine that with that roster and with that the talent that they have there, and the fact it's only his second season,
right,
that there wasn't something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about where they would let him go.
And you just drop him in division to the Padres. It's not like
nothing. Like we saw Lou Piniella get traded from the Mariners to the Rays.
Yeah.
You didn't even do that. You just let him go.
Right. I don't know. There's something else to it. I think you're right. There's something else to it.
There's got to be. There's something that happened behind the scenes.
Right.
And I actually want to look that up during our third break and see if there's an article that there has to be.
I didn't see anything. I could be wrong. I haven't been that in tune with the news as of late, but I haven't seen anything stick out to me. It's very odd, and it's also odd that the Oakland A's let him go in the first place. I thought because he's a really good manager and managed them to many 90-win seasons and a lot of high 80s win seasons.
Well, they knew what they were doing.
They were rebuilding, and it makes sense. I always just think that that's a very my thought process through this whole thing is that would be a very good guy to lead a rebuild, very good guy to lead, and they let him go, and so
the Athletics they weren't rebuilding. They were tearing it down for the sale of the team so they could move to Vegas. And that's why they let Bob Melvin go.
Yeah.
That's why
it was probably inevitable at some point. But now he's with San Francisco. Gabe Kapler is out there. We never really touched on that, I don't think, on the
fired.
show. He got fired.
Yeah.
Gabe Kapler, he's okay. I don't really feel one way or the other about Gabe Kapler.
Obviously, he got fired. Bob Melvin's the manager. For some reason, I'm thinking Bob Melvin is the GM in that instance. But you have to imagine that if Bob Melvin's willing to take a job with the San Francisco Giants, that they plan on making some moves this offseason.
Yeah, you would hope.
And I wonder if Shohei Ohtani's at the top of their list.
It's got to be.
He has to be.
So if we want to talk about Ohtani for a second, I'd be happy to, because you look at, I would think there's 3 possible destinations.
Mm-hmm.
I would think it's not going to be the Angels, first of all. He's not going back there. I don't think there's any.
They haven't proven to him that they can win.
I don't think there's any chance. So I look at it as, well, I guess I'll throw in 4. I think there's 2 East Coast teams and 2 West Coast teams. I think you're looking at the Dodgers and the Giants, and then the Mets and the Yankees.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves were in the running.
Yeah, you might be right.
I don't think the Mets are willing to spend like that right now.
Yeah,
I think that I think overall they are, but apparently they pulled when they talked to Max Scherzer before they traded him. He agreed to the trade because they told him, and they could have lied to his face just to get him to agree to the trade.
No.
But they told him we're probably looking more like 2025, 2026 to ramp things back up, not next season. And with that in mind, he's like, I'm out of here. And it looks like he made the right choice. He's in the World Series.
I mean, Ohtani's the guy to build around, though. So if you're able to get him in New York, but I don't know if Steve Cohen's going to come up to the table again with a $300 million contract, and it's going to be well over $300 this time. It's going to be probably
$500 to $600 million.
Yeah, at minimum, I think.
Because,
it's going to be
look,
incredibly expensive.
You're paying for this guy, and he's not going to pitch for you in 2024.
Right.
But he's going to pitch for you in 2025, 2026, 2027. Like,
right.
he's going to pitch for you after this coming season.
Yep.
Ohtani's going to get a bag. It might not be the same bag, but it very well could be because of the future. I also think the Padres could be in it for him, but
maybe.
But you would think that would be why they're so willing to not bring Soto back.
I was going to say, so Soto seems like he's on the trade block. Man, would that be a good pickup for the Orioles. Man, would that be a good pickup. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying it should, but man, that would be really nice.
Yeah.
That would be really nice.
So let's talk about the Orioles a little bit here. All right, because our Orioles banter segment, we're looking at the Orioles 26-man roster, right, and kind of making our predictions, our way too early predictions for the 26-man roster for 2024. And you look at opening day. And their 26-man roster. Right-handed pitchers, Brian Baker, Mike Baumann, Felix Bautista, Kyle Bradish, Kyle Gibson, Logan Gillespie, Dean Kramer, Austin Voth, Tyler Wells. Left-handed pitchers, Keegan Aiken, Danny Coulombe, Cole Irvin, and Cionel Perez. Catchers, Anthony Bemboom and Adley Rutschman. Infielders, Adam Frazier, Gunnar Henderson, Jorge Mateo, Ryan Mountcastle, Ramon Urias, and Terran Vavra. And then for outfielders, Austin Hayes, Ryan McKenna, Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, and Kyle Stowers. Then you look at the postseason roster. Similar but different. Right-handed pitchers, Brian Baker, Kyle Bradish, Yennier Cano, Jack Flaherty, Kyle Gibson, Dean Kramer, Grayson Rodriguez, Jacob Webb, Tyler Wells. Left-handed pitchers, Danny Coulombe, D.L. Hall, Cionel Perez. Catchers, James McCann, Adley Rutschman. And then for your infielders, Adam Frazier, Gunnar Henderson, Jorge Mateo, Ryan Mountcastle, Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Urias, Jordan Westberg. And outfielders, Austin Hayes, Aaron Hicks, Heston Kjerstad, Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander. So a lot of the same players, but a lot of different players from opening day to the postseason. Let's look at what we think this roster could look like for 2024. Assuming that these are the guys that are in-house, right? We know that Jack Flaherty's gone, right?
Yeah, you would think.
We know Jack Flaherty's gone, and we're pretty sure Kyle Gibson's gone, right?
Yeah.
So we can take them off. Brian Baker, is he here?
Yes, but I don't think he makes the opening day roster. I think he'll be in AAA.
I agree.
Look,
I could see him being part of a trade. I don't think he makes the opening day roster.
Is he really that valuable to be a part of a trade?
I don't think so.
I think that the Orioles clearly see something because they put him on the postseason roster for God knows what reason.
God, I hate him so much.
That was you're not a fan. That was maybe the Orioles' most questionable executive decision all year.
Well, and also using a roster spot for Heston Kjerstad, who didn't even get in the bat.
Yeah, he didn't get. Yeah, and a guy that clearly, very evidently, you don't trust in the outfield.
Yeah.
Very evidently.
And apparently the reviews weren't good on him at first base.
Right.
But look, if you want versatility in your DH spot, you're going to have to start trusting him in the outfield. I think they trust him in the outfield. I think they just trusted other guys more.
Yeah, it's possible.
So now you're looking Kyle Bradish, Yennier Cano, Dean Kramer, Grayson Rodriguez, Jacob Webb, Tyler Wells. I think that all those Jacob Webb might be the most questionable, but for now I think he'll still be here. All right.
Jacob Webb will be there.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that number goes from 9 to 7. Left-handed pitchers, Danny Coulombe, he'll be here.
Yep.
DL Hall, he'll be here.
Yep.
CNL Perez, he'll be here. But I think we add John Means to that.
Yeah, John Means, and the role is questionable. We don't know starter, reliever. I'm assuming they're going to roll him out there as a starter. But
they're going to roll him out there as a starter.
Yeah, the only thing that would change that is if they go out and sign a few guys in free agency, and that could possibly change, but I don't think that'll change.
I think he's their number 3.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add Cole Irvin to this list. I think that he's going to fill that role, that Austin Voth.
Interesting. By the way, when Stan started talking about Cole Irvin, I brought up the numbers for Hernandez. I think, and I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, I think he hit 328 in the minors this year. He was good.
Oh, really?
He was good. The OPS was in the 800s, if I can say it correctly, somewhere. Darrell Hernandez had a really good year. Not going to be a big power guy, but he's still developing. This could be a dangerous kid in a few years for Oakland.
How do you spell his first name? Is it Darrell?
It's two R's, 2 L's. Yeah.
Let's see. Did I spell his last name incorrectly? Is it with an S?
No, it's with a Z. Darrell Hernandez.
That's what I thought, but he's not listed
I'll pull him up on the page here. Oh, it's 1 R. You actually. I'm wrong. The slash line was 321, 386, 456, 841 for Darrell Hernandez.
And he in 60 games at AAA, he slashed 300, 376, 418, 794.
Really good numbers.
Yeah, not good enough to be here.
No, not good enough to be here.
The guys that we have here, it's not like the Orioles traded the guy who's like, oh man, you mortgage your future. They were willing to get rid of Darrell Hernandez because there were a couple years ago where he would have been one of their top prospects, but now he's their 6th best infield prospect. Like Gunnar, Westberg, Holiday, Ortiz, Norby, they're ahead of him.
Right. Yes.
So it's one of those things where you got to give up something to get something. And in the Orioles case, he gave up something, but it wasn't something to them. Right. So left-handed pitcher, you got You've got 11 pitchers, right-handed, left-handed. Catchers, James McCann, Adley Rutschman. That stays the same. They're both under contract. Infielders, Adam Frazier. We hope we know that he's gone.
You would think.
Gunnar Henderson. Duh. Jorge Mateo.
Yes, he'll be here.
You think so? You think he'll be on the roster?
I think Brandon Hyde really likes Jorge Mateo.
I don't even think he has options left. I think he really likes him too, but I don't know that you can roster him anymore.
Well, again, I think it's going to depend on what they do. If they sign a guy for the middle infield, then he's gone. But I don't know how probable that is because of Jackson Holiday, Jordan Westberg, and Connor Norby, and the wealth of other guys they have. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they really like his speed and his defense.
I think Mateo's going to be here until June. And then they're going to get rid of him. That's my plan.
Okay. I think that he offers enough from a defense and speed standpoint and against left-handed pitching that he'll be here. So I'll agree with you. Ryan Mountcastle, yes. Ryan O'Hearn, yes. Ramon Arias, I think he's gone.
Yeah. I would say more than likely.
I think he's probably going to be traded for like minor league depth. I think he's gone because I don't think they envision a spot for him. And his defense really got worse. He hits too many ground balls.
Right. I see very minimal value there at this point with Arias. He's a filler player. He's a below-average starter at best. There's no value left there, I don't think.
So that's 5 infielders. And then outfielders, Austin Hayes, yes. Aaron Hicks, I don't think he's here.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that he thinks he can get a full-time gig someplace else. Heston Kjerstad, yes. Cedric Mullins, yes. Anthony Santander, yes.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything from my show with Connor Newcomb, but I was on, and we had a little bit of an outfield discussion. I won't name the players exactly, but one of the conclusions that I came away with on that show, on the Locked On Orioles podcast, is that I do think one of these current outfielders, not including Aaron Hicks, and not including Heston Kjerstad or Colton Cowser, excuse me, I think one of Hayes, Mullins, or Santander is going to be on the move this year.
You think so?
In the offseason. Or at the trade deadline. One of them is going to be gone in the near future.
But do you think that they'll be on the opening day roster?
Most likely, but I think one of them could be replaced. I think specifically with... I don't know. I don't know. It's really hard to say. The big question the Orioles are going to have to ask is, are Heston Kjerstad and Colton Cowser more than what these guys are giving you. As Cedric Mullins is the one that probably has the biggest target on his back right now because of the way he hit down the stretch.
But who's going to replace him?
It's
that
really
guy's
tough.
Not anywhere close
it's really
to this
tough.
organization yet. Yeah. And who are you going to find to play better defense than Austin Hayes in left field?
Played great.
Everybody talks about how Colton Cowser can play all three outfield positions. Yeah, sure, but he took, in my opinion, circuitous routes to the baseball.
Yeah.
And Austin Hayes. Look, if Austin Hayes is a guy who consistently hits 7th in your order,
right,
I can live with that.
Right.
I can live with him being here because of the defense. He's probably not going to win the Gold Glove this year. I think Steven Kwan will probably win it again. But he's a finalist. And if you told me at the beginning of the year Austin Hayes is going to hit 275 this year with 16 home runs, nearly 40 doubles, and nearly 80 RBIs and play Gold Glove caliber defense, I would have signed up for that in blood.
Yeah, he was really good. He was really good.
If you had told me that he was going to do that by falling off a cliff the second half, again, I would not have signed up for that.
Right.
He's got to be able to prove that he can stay healthy for a full season. And now this is 2 years in a row where we saw him on fire for the first 3 months of the season. I mean, he was the American League's leading hitter going into the All-Star break, and then he lost 30 points in his batting average in 3 weeks.
So Connor brought this up on the show we did about Austin Hayes, and he said that before June 21st, he went in slashing 327, not slashing 327, but hitting 327 after 230 to the finish line.
He was hitting 318 at the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And within 3 weeks, his average had dropped all the way down to 288.
Brutal. He really dropped off a cliff. And that's Austin Hayes. That's the story of this guy. So him, Cedric Mullins, I think they unfortunately have targets on their backs because of their inability this year to keep it going for the whole campaign.
Yeah. Well, I think that Cedric Mullins, because of how good he was before he got hurt, because that's the
he was very good.
And the stolen base ability, I don't think he has a target on his back.
Okay.
I think he's the Orioles' plan at center field until somebody else comes to take that job from him.
You could absolutely be right.
I think that Austin Hayes has a target on his back, but I think that the Orioles know that he has mastered playing left field in Camden Yards, and you can't take that for granted.
That's true.
You can't take that for granted. So you look at this, and now we have 4 players that we need to add to this roster for opening day. In the infield, we'll start at right-handed pitcher. Kyle Bradish, Yennier Cano, Dean Kramer, Grayson Rodriguez, Jacob Webb, Tyler Wells.
Well, let me look at this. Is this in your notes?
Well, I've edited my notes at this point.
Gotcha. Say the names again. That was too many to remember at one
Kyle
time.
Bradish.
Okay.
Yennier Cano.
Yeah.
Dean Kramer.
Yes.
Grayson Rodriguez.
Yes.
Jacob Webb.
Yeah.
Tyler Wells.
Yeah.
Oh, that's only 6.
Yeah, there's one missing.
6. Oh, Kyle Bradish, Yennier Cano, Dean Kramer, Grayson Rodriguez, Jacob Webb, Tyler Wells. That's 6. So we actually have 5 players to add.
We could factor in as well here the fact that there's probably someone coming in from free agency.
Yeah. So
as far as a righty.
So maybe Shane Bieber. He's a righty, right?
Yes, he is.
So maybe we've heard Shane Bieber linked to the Orioles all off since the Orioles have been done. But we won't put his name. We'll just put a free agent.
I don't even know how I feel about that, if I'm being honest with you, because Shane Bieber was really good 2 years ago and has been okay since. He lost 4 miles an hour in his fastball, more or less, and he hasn't been the same since. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. He's good. He's really good. I don't know.
So we'll put a free agent there.
Sure, throw one in.
We'll probably put. I don't know, man.
This is hard. Without seeing it on paper, it's hard.
This is really hard. So we know for a fact these 21 guys are going to be on the team. As far as left-handed pitchers, I think that you can include Tucker Davidson.
Probably depends on spring training.
I think that you can include Tucker Davidson because I think that they really like his splitter, and I think that they'll make it a point all off season to work with him.
And cool.
You know what? I'm going to put Fuji on this list.
Interesting. Well, he's not even under contract yet, so you just assume that he's coming.
I think he will be back.
Okay.
I don't think they would have traded for him if they didn't plan on bringing him back.
That's probably fair.
The arm is too elite. Given like how hard he can throw and the stuff that he has, I think that they view his arm as too elite to let him go, and you can probably get him back for about $3 million again. So there's Fuji, and then we'll put a free agent. So that's going to get you up to 8 right-handed hitters. Tucker Davidson, that gets you up to 5 left-handed pitchers, and that's 13
Okay.
That's 13 pitchers right there.
Right where we want to be.
Catchers, James McCann, Adley Rutschman.
It's locked.
That's what it is, unless somebody gets hurt, right? Infielders, Gunnar Henderson, Jorge Mateo, Ryan Mountcastle, Ryan O'Hearn, Jordan Westberg. Do you add Joey Ortiz and Jackson Holiday to this?
I think Jackson Holiday's making the opening day roster.
Yeah, I think he is.
I think he is.
So that's Jackson Holiday. And do you think Joey Ortiz, if you think that he and Jorge Mateo battle it out in spring training for that utility spot?
I would put, just in your notes and everyone's heads, I would put a slash there where it's either Joey Ortiz or Jorge Mateo. I don't think it's going to be both.
Okay. So it's one of those two.
Yeah, I think it's one or the other. I just don't see it being both.
All right. So you've got 6 infielders. So now that puts us up at 19.
Did you say Ryan O'Hearn?
I did.
Okay.
So you have, I'm sorry, that's 8 and 13, 21. Austin Hayes, Heston Kjerstad, Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander. One of these guys is going to DH, which means you need a 4th outfielder. Is Colton Kalzer that outfielder?
Probably. But
Now,
I don't think on opening day.
If Colton Kalzer is on this team, I agree with you that one of these guys is being traded.
Yeah.
Heston Kjerstad, I think, is on this opening day roster.
I agree with that as well.
Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander. Now, Anthony Santander, and when we had Connor Newcomb on the show last week, we talked about this. What they do with him is going to be really foreshadowing what's going to happen with this organization moving forward. He's due about $12.5 to $13 million this coming season through arbitration. Do you extend him? Do you pay him arbitration, or do you trade him?
I'd pay him arbitration.
If you trade him, what does that mean for the organization? I think
I wouldn't like that.
I think he means too much to this organization right now as a player and as a clubhouse presence. I think he's here. I think the most likely guy to get traded is Austin Hayes, and I'm still not sure about that.
I would agree with that too.
I don't think Ryan McKenna's here. I think that ship has sailed.
I don't think there's room. It's like Taron Valver for me, where that ship has probably sailed.
Right. And do you maybe use Connor Norby or Jordan Westberg in the outfield? Can they play the outfield for you?
Yeah. Or Kobe Mayo.
Or Kobe Mayo, I think they'd rather have him play first base. That's
probably.
Another guy. I don't think Kobe Mayo is here.
Not on opening day
to start the season, but I think he makes it here in 2024.
Right.
You also have to look at the fact that Connor Norby hit 29 home runs 2 years ago. He hit like 27 this year, and he set a franchise record for hits at Norfolk. He's been really good.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about him because of Westberg and Gunnar.
And it probably goes without saying, but you're looking at the June 1st roster being significantly different and well more indicative of the actual Orioles than the opening day roster.
Right.
I don't know how indicative it will be. You look back in the opening day roster you put in your notes, and it's not very indicative to me of what the 2023 Orioles looked like. So the 2024 Orioles will look completely different on June 1st, perhaps maybe a month later on July 1st, but you're looking at a number of these guys, Kobe Mayo, the possibility of Jackson Holiday being up at some point and probably on opening day, but that's not set in stone, obviously. There's a few X factors that are going to be here that are going to make the team probably a little weaker on opening day, but stronger when it comes to June and July.
I'm going to put Connor Norby on this list.
Okay, I like that. That's fine.
I'm going to put him on this list.
And I do think Ortiz will be here, too, the more I think about it.
Because of the fact that I believe that one of Norby and Westberg will be in the outfield, and I think it's more likely to be Norby because I think Westberg has more defensive versatility in the infield.
I agree.
Norby is a second baseman and as a second baseman.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
But I think that they will use both of those guys at different points in the outfield.
Totally. Agree with that.
Right now, if we're looking, we're stating that the Orioles are going to have 6 or 7 infielders, 4 or 5 outfielders, 2 catchers, 5 left-handed pitchers, 8 right-handed pitchers, and the only free agents that we're accounting for are Fuji and another addition.
Right.
Another addition. I have to imagine that the Orioles are going to bring in another veteran bat.
Yeah.
But we have no idea what that looks like right now.
I would say a free agency class for the Orioles looks like, and this includes trades too, free agency and trades combined, I think you're bringing in roughly 3 guys.
Yeah, I would imagine. I think you're bringing in a veteran presence, but maybe a little bit better than like an Adam Frazier type of signing.
Right.
I think you're bringing, and maybe it's a first baseman. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're doing exactly what you did with Frazier and Gibson, where you're getting a veteran position player and a veteron pitcher, but you're upgrading in both places.
Yeah, and I think that they're going to bring in another reliever.
Yeah.
I have to imagine.
I like
they're
that too.
Bring in another reliever. So, but this is mostly in-house, and so we know that this is inaccurate.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's
Right.
it's October 28th. We know that this is inaccurate.
Right.
But we have no idea we don't even know all the free agents that are going to be out there. Who's going to opt out? Who's going to opt in? Who's going to be available on a trade? Ask us again in January after the winter meetings, and we'll be able to better tell you.
I'm going to tell you right now, too. One of the guys we just mentioned as a lock is not going to be a lock. It always happens that way.
Dean Kramer, for me,
very well could be the guy.
Is a guy who the Orioles have been like, you know what, you're good, but you're not.
Well, it happens every year where you look back in March and you say, wow, that guy in October who we thought was going to be on this team 100% is nowhere close to being on this team. Mm-hmm. He's either traded or he didn't make the roster or he got DFA'd or whatever it is.
Sure.
There's so many things that could have happened between now and March.
Nobody saw Ryan O'Hearn.
Right.
And he's a finalist for the MLBPA Comeback Player of the Year. Nobody saw him being on this team and being playing the role that he played. We thought it was going to be Franchi Cordero or Josh Lester.
Right.
And it was friggin' Ryan O'Hearn.
But we can look back and in March and say, wow, Santander is gone. Never could have seen that coming in October.
Yeah.
It's just that's the way it goes.
I legitimately thought Joey Ortiz was going to make this team out of spring training. And I thought that one of, or if not both, of Jorge Mateo and Ramon Arias were going to be traded by the end of spring training.
Right.
I thought one of those guys was definitely gone, and they both made it the entire season on this roster somehow.
Right.
So we got to catch our final break. When we come back in, we'll close things out with Take to Rake and Final Thoughts. That's next on the Bat Around.
Come for a game, stay for everything else. Book an unforgettable fall getaway in Charm City. Enjoy only in Baltimore festivals, mouthwatering eats, and endless entertainment. Treat yourself to a staycation in the heart of downtown, or try one of the city's many charming neighborhood hotels. And don't miss out on packages for free parking, breakfast, and more. Plan your stay at baltimore.org/hotels.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
What's up, everyone? It's Tyus Bowser, and I've had so much fun hanging out with Rita and putting up with Glenn the last couple years that I've decided to do it again. Season 3 of the Tyus Bowser Show is happening this year, as we'll be all over town, giving you the chance to get to know me and some of my teammates. As we talk football, life in general, and just say what needs to be said. You can find out more about the show by going to pressboxonline.com/Bowser. If you don't live in the area, you can watch the shows live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you miss one, you can listen Friday nights at 105.7 The Fan. So we'll see you all season long for the Tyus Bowser Show, a partnership of Pressbox and Great Ace Memorabilia.
The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, November 7th at Guilford Home Brewery in Station North. It's brought to you by A.J. Michaels, Superbook Sports, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org.
6 chicken tenders made from fresh, never frozen Royal Farms world-famous chicken, a family-sized order of Western fries, honey mustard dipping sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. It's Royal Farms' new Tucker's Tenders Meal. It's Justin Tucker's favorite, and at only $19.99, it'll be your favorite meal too. The new Tucker's Tenders Meal, available only at Royal Farms. Now you can kick back, relax, and eat like a champion. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Todd Karpovich profiles the Orioles survivors, Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Ryan Mountcastle, who all came from the previous regime but stuck through tough times to be key pieces in guiding the franchise back to prominence. Also inside, we remember the iconic Brooks Robinson with tributes from Jim Henneman and myself, Stan the Fan Charles, and a trip down memory lane to remember the most significant moments of his career. Plus, we meet players from college basketball programs around the state. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Welcome back in to the Bat-Around. I feel like the music for that break coming back in should have been the final countdown, since we're in the final countdown on shows for the Bat-Around. Man, the more I think about this, the sadder it makes me. Like,
well,
we've had a couple of times in this show where we've alluded to, off-season shows and then realized, crap, that's not a thing.
Yeah, hopefully there's some outlet where we can still talk baseball in some capacity. So hopefully you're able to figure that out with Press Box, and we'll get something going here.
Yeah,
if that happens,
even
who
if
knows?
I'm not, I'll still do something on my own. My broadcasting career in baseball got started with a YouTube show in my basement.
Yeah, you were doing Payoff Pitch. That
was a Payoff Pitch, and that moved over to Utah Street Report, and then when they didn't want to do another season because Tony over at Utah Street Report, love Tony, he wanted to take things in a different direction, as far as kind of just doing like little 5-minute videos here and there, and I had a different vision for it than he did, but I was willing to do what he wanted to do, and then the pandemic hit, and he didn't really want me to come back. Not me, but he didn't really want to do another show with a shortened season.
Yeah.
So then I started here, and the rest is history, and soon this show is history, and that hurts my heart.
That's a weird way to put it. Depressing way to put it.
Well, yeah, but it's history because of the fact that we're both moving on to bigger.
Yes.
I don't want to say better things, but bigger and better things in our lives. This show is very important to us, but you're focusing on grad school and an incredible internship, and I'm focusing on starting a family.
Yeah.
And so things like this that we love have to fall by the wayside until we're able to.
Unfortunately, it comes a time where you only have room for so many commitments in your life.
Exactly.
And when you feel like you can't fulfill those commitments the way you want to be able to fulfill them, that's when you have to, unfortunately, let them go.
Exactly.
That's the unfortunate part about it.
Our TED Talk is brought to you by my daughter, who is
here we go.
29 weeks old.
This is the best part of the Bat-Around every week.
And is the size of a head of cauliflower today.
That's not that much bigger than a head of lettuce.
Last week she was the size of a head of lettuce, and the week before that was the size of a head of cabbage.
That's all the same size.
They're basically all the same size. She is 15.5 to 16 inches. She's 2.5 to 3 pounds. So she's like cooking. She's cooking in there, man.
She's cooking.
We have another sonogram on the next Friday, November 3rd. Very excited about that, and very excited that the time is coming very soon, where she will be here.
Speak about commitments.
Yeah,
that's one.
The biggest one, right?
Yeah.
She will be here, and I'm very excited about that. Hopefully, she weighs more than 3 pounds at that point, because that would be pretty scary. She's gonna be. I was talking to my wife. She's gonna be. I think she's gonna be a 6 to 7 pound baby.
Is that big? I don't know.
I think it's a normal size.
Size.
I was 7 pounds 12 ounces. My niece and nephew, my very first niece and nephew, they were like both under 6 pounds.
Were you a big kid?
No.
No.
Okay. I had a giant head, but my head's basically been the same since I was born.
Wow. I had a giant head.
A giant head. All right. So it is time now for Take to Rake. And Zachary Allen Goodman took Jose Altuve last week.
Can't imagine that one well.
I took Yordan Alvarez. And Luke Jackson took Kyle Schwarber. They all only played, Schwarber played 3 games. Altuve and Alvarez played 2 games. They all played well. Altuve, in 2 games, he went 4 for 10. He slashed 400, 400, 800, 1,200. So no walks. He had 1 double, 1 home run, 1 ribeye steak, and 1 stolen base. Yordan Alvarez 5 for 7, 714, 778, 1778. He had 1 triple, 4 singles, 2 ribeyes, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and no stolen bases. And then Kyle Schwarber, he went 3 for 9, a double, a homer, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts, 333, 539, 778, 1316.
Okay.
I think I won.
Yeah, it's fine.
He hit 714.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters. I think it's like my 6th win all season.
Yeah.
So
I think we don't even have to count it up. I believe I won this year. I believe that's the case.
I'd
think we have to count
imagine
it up.
I'll still go through it just to do it. Because last year I thought you won and I ended up winning.
It's probably not as wide of a margin we think it is, but I do think that I finally won this year.
I think you won by a good bit. Maybe not. You know,
unfortunately, we have the categories for Ryan and the guests, yet we don't actually give them wins. Really, they don't actually have a chance to win at all. Like
the overall guest, if overall our guests have more wins than we do,
true,
then we would give the win to the guests that have the most wins.
Yeah,
right. Which would probably be somebody like Ryan or Luke or Connor, guys who are on the show,
right?
You know, a handful of times throughout the year,
right?
But I think that you ran away with this thing this year.
Probably
last year I was sure of it, and it ended up I beat you by about 3.
Wow.
This year, I would not be surprised if you beat me by 6 or more.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't huge, but I do think I won this year.
Yeah. So final take to Rake in the history of the bet. God, man,
history.
Depressing. Final take to Rake ever.
Yeah.
We've got Diamondbacks, Rangers.
Yeah. Should we each have to pick one from one team? Would that be more fun, or should we just pick one player?
I think it would be no. Why don't we pick a player from each? Screw it. Why don't we each just pick 2 players? So from the Rangers, God, it's hard not to pick Adolis Garcia. Right, because he's been so on fire, but doesn't that mean that he's due for a comeback?
I don't know. I don't think it works that way in the playoffs as much.
Yeah, I think I gotta take Garcia.
Okay,
and then from the Diamondbacks. Well, you know what? I'll let you pick first.
Okay,
from the Diamondbacks.
Give me Marte. Why not?
Ketel Marte.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want me to write these down, or do you want to do it?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. So I'll do Paul takes Garcia and Corbin Carroll.
Okay. I will do Evan Carter from the Rangers.
Nobody taking Seager.
Yeah, Seager's a good pick, too. Really, all 3 of those guys, you can't go wrong. Between Garcia, Seager, and Carter.
So you're taking Evan Carter and you're taking Ketel Marte.
Yeah, let's do it.
Final bat around.
It sucks they can't be an Oriole. That's unfortunate. As the final, this would have been a really good way to close out the bat around if the Orioles had just won the World Series.
Yeah,
that would have been nice. Come on.
Part of me thought, why don't we do one? Why don't I do one more season, and maybe the Orioles will win a World Series, and that'll be a sweet swan song.
I do think we saw it through in a really good way, though, where we got to see 4 seasons of complete misery to the most fun season maybe in your lifetime. Except maybe 97. I know you love 97.
97 and 2012 and 2014
were
awesome. This year
was
awesome, too. 97 will always, until the Orioles win a World Series, 97 will always hold a special place in my heart.
That's fair.
But this year's up there. This year is for sure up there. I mean, there's not a lot of them, but this year's for sure up there.
No doubt.
Yeah, final take to Rake. Paul, me. I take Adolis Garcia and Corbin Carroll, and Zach takes Evan Carter and Ketel Marte.
Going all in.
Final thoughts. Ravens, last week, they did what nobody expected them to do.
What else can you say?
I mean, they first team in the NFL to score a touchdown on each of their first 4 drives. They could have scored every drive if they wanted to. Even I think it was their first or second drive in the second half, the 80-yard 4 plays, 96 yards or some junk like that, and they score a touchdown. the Lions didn't even get off the team bus. They were down 35-0 in the third quarter.
Right.
The Orioles. The Ravens win that game 38-6. Lamar Jackson, AFC Player of the Week, has now become one of the front runners for MVP. 357 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. This week, the Ravens' defense is the best defense in football.
It is.
They're number 1 in yards, number 1 in points per. I mean, they're allowing 13 points per game.
That defense is ridiculous,
and that's with injuries.
This team, I'm ready to say it. This is the best team in my history of watching Ravens football, and that's been since about 2007, roughly.
So the 2006 team was phenomenal. I've been around for every Ravens team that there's been, and the both Super Bowl teams. The 2006 team has always stood out to me as the best team. That defense,
really good defense.
That defense was stupid, and the offense the offense did enough to win football games with that defense. The 2011 Ravens team was really good.
Yeah.
2010 and 2011, both those teams went 12-4.
The 11 team was the team that should have won the Super Bowl.
And then the 2012 team, I mean, they started 9-2. And think about the hey diddle diddle Ray Rice up the middle conversion on 4th and 29. If they don't convert that, they don't even make the playoffs.
Right.
They don't even make the playoffs, and they won the Super Bowl. That
and
year.
The Jacoby Hail Mary, not really Hail Mary, but
the Mile High Miracle.
The Mile High Miracle. That's what I was looking for. Incredible moments, but this team is better than all of them in my opinion.
This team, what they have on offense, their offensive line gave Lamar more time than I've ever seen him get.
Oh, yeah. It was
Lamar's
amazing.
passes are so deadly accurate this year.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's the highest graded quarterback in football, according to Pro Football Focus, and the second highest graded football player, I think, in the red zone, a quarterback in the red zone. The defense has been lights out. If they stay healthy, and with this team, that's always a big if.
Always.
The receivers caught the football. Mark Andrews looks like an all-pro again. If they add Derrick Henry, I don't know how you stop this offense.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Derrick Henry's the right fit. I was actually having this argument with Matt Pine yesterday, and he's very on the Derrick Henry train. And I was like, Gus Edwards is not obviously as good as Derrick Henry, but they're the same type of player. Do you really want to have both of them in the same offense? I'm not really sure.
Derrick Henry can do so much.
He can.
And maybe Gus Edwards is part of that trade. I'd be okay with losing Derrick Henry, with losing Gus Edwards to get Derrick Henry.
I would be too. I just don't know if I want both of them in back-to-back snaps running the. I don't know. I'd rather have a more elusive guy like Dobbins or Hill that they already have.
But Dobbins is hurt.
Of course, he's gone for the year. Yeah.
Of course.
Course.
But maybe when you look at it, you had Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins. Two of those guys were the same type of player in Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. I look at it as, if you get Derrick Henry 15 carries a game, you get Gus Edwards 10 carries a game, and Justice Hill 6 carries a game, you're in a situation there where you're really how do you stop a team that has that kind of running game?
I don't know, and I agree with you. Running back is their biggest need.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly right now, running back is their biggest need. I also think tackle is a need because Ronnie Stanley played a lot better last week. Don't get me wrong. But I believe that tackle is going to be an injury issue and a fatigue issue down the stretch. So I think they should add depth at tackle.
How do you think they feel about their pass rush? They're first in the NFL in sacks.
Clowney's excellent.
Yeah.
He's been excellent.
Matt Abike is going to get a bag.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. 5.5 sacks for him. At this point in the season, he's going to get a ton of money in the offseason as a free agent, whether it's from the Ravens or somebody else. Odafe Owe, I know you're not a big Owe guy, but he came the way he played against the Texans, and then he got hurt, and then the way that he played in his first game back after missing 4 weeks, he looked every bit the part. I thought he was a force in that game when he played.
That's definitely true. Owe played his best week, and he's obviously been injured for the great part of this year, but I thought he played his best week since he forced that fumble in the Chiefs game 2 years ago. I haven't seen Odafe Owe have that much of an impact since then. He played well, and I'll give him credit for that. I'm not the biggest fan. I also don't know. Tyus Bowser should be back at some point soon, but John Harbaugh kind of gave no update on that this week when asked about it.
I don't think he's back ever.
I
don't think he's back ever. I think if he was coming back at all this year, they would be more open to talking about it.
If it happens, it's going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah. So My prediction for this week's game, I believe you gave your prediction first last week. My prediction for this week's game, I don't know that the offense is going to click like it did last week. If it does, it's not going to be close. I don't think it's going to be close either way. I'm going to say Ravens 31. I'll go Ravens 34, Cardinals 9.
34-9?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting score. I think they'll score a touchdown. I mean, Joshua Dobbs has been okay for them.
Kyler Murray's off the injury report.
He is. I don't. He's still doubtful though.
I still don't think he's going to play.
I think Joshua Dobbs is better. Hot take, really hot take.
I hate Kyler Murray. I did pick him up and put him on my bench.
Kyler Murray is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
I hate Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray,
he's such a bitch. I don't know how. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. We only got 2 weeks left anyway. I hate.
That's
Kyler
funny.
Murray.
That's funny. Not a Kyler Murray fan. No, I don't think he's a very good quarterback. Frankly, I think he's not very careful with the ball, similar to the way Lamar runs around a lot of times, where I just don't think Kyler Murray's very careful with the ball. And I don't know if he's the smartest quarterback in the world either. But he is an extremely good athlete, and that's where he really and his arm is good, no doubt. Very strong arm. I just don't think he's the most accurate. I don't think he makes the best decisions.
Should have played baseball. Obviously, he doesn't make the best decisions. He chose football over baseball.
Him and Baker Mayfield are similar in the decisions they make, which are just poor. Mm-hmm. Like they're great talented players, but they just make poor decisions, and that's what I look like. That's what I look at with Kyler Murray. Joshua Dobbs is not that good either. Don't get me wrong, but I think so far he's been better than expected for a bad Cardinals team. They're a bad Cardinals team. Yeah. I'm gonna go 20. No, I'll go 31-17.
31-17.
Yeah.
Ravens are only allowing 13 points a game. They're playing a bad Cardinals team.
I think they're due for a bad week after. They're still going to win. They're going to win, but I think they're due to give up a few more points than they did last week.
I can see it. That could be the type of trap game that is. I don't think that they lose. I just don't.
No,
think
they're not going to lose this game.
If they do, man, we're going to be.
This is not the definition of a trap game. Trap games are when you're playing a team that is.
It's like if you were to play the Broncos or something.
Right. That's a great example of it. This team is not a trap game. This is not what that's going to be. Hopefully they don't go prove me wrong. But
it's like when they lost to the Steelers. That was a trap game.
That was a trap game because they're not complete garbage. They're just they're just I don't know. They're a middling franchise is what I would say with the Steelers at the moment.
I think they suck. All right. That's going to do it for us here on the Batter Round. Thank you to Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment. Thank you to Ryan Ripken for another great segment with us. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we don't have a show. Thank you to all of our listeners and fans. Without you, we really don't have a show. And in 2 weeks, we really don't have a show. I'm going to cry. All right. Love you guys. I will talk to you next week.